Thrown out of the Windsor estate, the police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation and development on this story involving the Epstein files and all the allegations that have been swirling around about Andrew over the many years, from Virginia Giuffre, now sadly deceased, and since then, and certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. But the police have arrived at Sandringham Estate this morning, where Andrew has made his new home. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is. He has been arrested by the police. Of course, the brother of the current king, the second son of our late Queen Elizabeth. This is an extraordinary development. Those of us who've been talking an awful lot about establishment cover-ups and lack of, should we say, interest by the police in what are very, very serious allegations against Andrew. Perhaps pleased that that pressure has finally been put on the police, and they have done the job of actually looking into these issues seriously. Must bear in mind, of course, that the Prince has not been charged with any crime at this point, and he has always denied any wrongdoing in relation to any of the allegations about him. We'll give you more on that. We'll talk to you about that throughout the show, but I'm just being told that the arrest has been on suspicion of misconduct in public office. This, of course, relates to those Epstein file allegations and the documents that, if they are true, would suggest that he had, it is alleged, passed on basically what was confidential government information when he was the UK trade envoy for this country for 10 years to Jeffrey Epstein for Jeffrey Epstein's financial gain.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, very good morning to you. Just gone 6 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Jeremy Kyle on a Friday on Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense, the home of Alarm Clock Britain. Thank you for tuning in. It is, of course, all about one story this morning. The Green Party have won the Denton and Gorton by-election. Labour in third place. Hannah Spencer is the new MP for Gorton and Denton. She secured 14,980 votes. Something like, I think in terms of percentages, it was an impressive percentage. She got 41% of the vote. In second, Matt Goodwin from Reform, 29% of the vote, 10,584 seats. And to be fair, that is what Reform was getting across the United Kingdom in every national poll. Labour in third. It spells trouble for the Prime Minister. In the last election in Denton and Gorton and Denton, whichever way round you want to say it, Labour won the seat with 50% of the vote. Their vote today dropped from 50% down to a pretty unimpressive 26%. Questions for all the main political parties. This was the moment that Hannah Spencer was announced as the winner of the by-election.
Spencer, Hannah Catherine, the Green Party, 14,980. I hereby declare that Hannah Catherine Spencer is duly elected Member of Parliament for the Gorton and Denton constituency.
Many are jumping up and down already and having their say. We're going to do it all morning. We want your say on 0344 499 1000. Get those voice notes in. We'd love, of course, your text messages throughout the morning. The team are ready to go 8722 and with me for the first hour. Former Labour MP who knows the area, Reform defector Simon Danshut. Good morning.
Good to be with you.
Before we get you your responses, go live immediately to the area to Talk Breakfast presenter and reporter Samara Gill on the ground. Tell me how the night unfolded, please.
Oh my gosh, Jeremy, it was probably one of the dirtiest by-elections ever fought to date. This was knives out, and really the Labour Party is the biggest loser out of all of this. I feel like when you look at that vote count that you just read out to me, it was really split down the middle in how much Labour fought and lost, because half went to Reform, the other half went to the Greens, and the Greens ended up triumphing quite spectacularly, actually, and it's really interesting. I mean, Matt Goodwin made a statement afterwards. He said this is about sectarianism and about the fact that unfortunately, there are certain voting blocks here now in Gorton and Denton that are purely based on identity politics. But, you know, the Greens, they run a very, very, very aggressive campaign with aggressive tactics, like videos in Urdu, going after certain politicians and linking them to other Israeli politicians. There was a lot of Israelophobia that was going on, and there was a lot of division, in my opinion, from the Greens side. But, you know, it's almost a bit of a win for Reform in some ways, because they did come second. It's an impressive result, but they weren't able to take it past the line. You know, you've got parties like Advance UK that only managed to pick up 154 votes, which is less than, you know, the candidate who was called the Raving Loony Party. So you can see some of those tetchy you know, things before the election where we thought, oh, the vote might be split. I think it's very much the fact that we can see that Reform does have the Conservative vote under lock and key, but unfortunately it wasn't enough in this very, very safely held Labour seat, or what is now formally safely held and now belongs to Hannah Spencer. I've actually got with me here one of the people who got the first ever selfie with Hannah Spencer when she was an MP just a couple of minutes ago. Paul, welcome to the show. Paul is a Green supporter.
Yeah, a newish Green supporter, yeah, thinking of voting for them in the next general election. I've always voted Labour, but as I say, I feel Labour aren't left-wing enough for me anymore, and I'm part of the LGBT plus community, and I think the Greens offer a safer home than Labour at the moment for people like me. But yeah, she came out of the building and I asked her for a photo, and someone with her said no, and she overrode that, and she said, you're my first selfie as an MP. Yeah.
What brought it past the line for Hannah Spencer, do you think? I mean, she is kind of a very certain type of candidate, someone I don't even know if they can stand up in many other elections, because she's a plumber, she's blonde, she's a woman. She was able to cajole the Muslim community into voting for her as well. What do you think it was about her and her campaign?
Well, I think she's young, which helps. I think, personally, I'm 50 next year, and I just think we need an injection of 20 and 30-year-olds in politics at the minute, because there's just too many fuddy-duddies as far as I'm concerned. So I think that will appeal, because there's a lot of LGBT plus people who live in parts of that constituency. A lot of students live there. So yeah, I think she's quite charismatic. She's stand out. She looks a breath of fresh air compared to a lot of people who stand to be MPs, quite frankly. And a lot of the other contestants, they looked tired in comparison, didn't they? And it was between her and Matt Goodwin. I mean, I wouldn't vote for Reform, but I can see if you was to vote for Reform that he's got an appeal too. But yeah, they were the two standouts, weren't they?
Just lastly, if Andy Burnham would have ran in the Labour seat, unfortunately Keir Starmer and others blocked him, would you have voted for Labour, or do you think he might have won?
They'd have definitely done better. I mean, considering they got 9,000 votes, he probably would have won, to be honest, wouldn't he? So, yeah. But I'm glad this has happened, because I didn't like Morgan McSweeney. I don't like the way Labour's set up Blue Labour. And I think it's time for them to shift a bit more to the left. But to be honest, some people may never come back, just like a lot of people will never come back from Reform to the Tory party again.
There you go. Thank you, Paul. So that is a new dawn today. That is definitely signalling the end of Labour and a shift to even further right, which and further left, sorry, in that direction, because the backbenchers have been disrespected by Keir Starmer, and it seems like he's running some sort of middle ground campaign that is pleasing no one. Back to you, Jeremy.
Amazing, my darling. Thank you so much indeed. She's been up all night. What a fantastic job you're doing, Samara. Thank you. More from her later in the show. Simon Danchuk in the studio. We have got so much response, so many people in. As I said, voice notes straight away. 344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Simon Danchuk, I want to do this in the right way, OK? Everybody knows that I'm a disaffected Tory who voted Reform. I'm going to be as balanced as possible. But let us strip this down. Labour, all they did was attack Reform. Reform's vote at 29% held up. What it had been nationally, it held up locally. We cannot shy away from making the point that Nigel Farage has just made in this tweet, ladies and gentlemen, literally 30 seconds ago. He says, this election was a victory for sectarian voting and cheating. Matt Goodwin was a great candidate for us. Roll on the elections of May the 7th. It will be goodbye Starmer and goodbye to the Tory party. There have been rumours overnight that there were family voting. Can you explain that to people waking up? You take your kids and what? Show them what to do? This has been seen, apparently, on the ground.
Yeah, no doubt about it. There's an organisation called Democracy Volunteers who are allowed to go into polling stations and observe the voting process. And what they've said is, and this is absolutely exceptional, is that 12% of the votes that they observed being cast in the polling stations were family voting. That means...
What does it mean?
It means somebody was showing somebody else who to vote for on the ballot paper.
I thought it was illegal to go into the booth with anybody else.
Absolutely, and I can't understand. I've been to hundreds of elections over the years, hundreds upon hundreds. I can't understand why the presiding officers in the polling station allowed it to happen.
Let's just leave that out there, because the one thing that I refuse to do this morning for anybody is sit here and attempt to say, oh, there's a bad smell. There are facts we're going to lay in front of you, right? There are facts, but democracy is democracy, and as we stand or sit here this morning, Hannah Spencer is the new MP for Gorton and Denton. But let's talk about something else that Nigel Farage has just tweeted about. Sectarian voting. This is factual, ladies and gentlemen. This is not an attempt to cry over spilt milk. This was a campaign video that we weren't allowed to show you during the election campaign because that would be deemed as unfair. The Green Party election video in the Gorton and Denton by-election. Have a watch, friends.
गोर्टन और डेंटन एक जुल्म सियासतदान जीत सकता है अगर हम रिफॉर्म को रोकने के लिए ग्रीन को वोट ना दें।
मेरा नाम हैना स्पेंसर है। मैं ग्रीन पार्टी की उम्मीदवार हूँ।
दुकानदार, सफाई करने वाले, ड्राइवर्स, माएं, ये हम हैं जो इस इलाके को चलाते हैं। लेकिन सियासतदान हमारे लिए काम नहीं कर रहे हैं। बिल्स बढ़ते जा रहे हैं, किराए हमें घरों से निकाल रहे हैं और हम 2 गुना मेहनत करके भी कम कमा रहे हैं। रिफॉर्म हमारी कम्युनिटीज को तोड़ना चाहती हैं। वो उन खानदानों को डिपोर्ट करना चाहती हैं जो सालों से यहाँ रह रहे हैं।
Sorry guys, there's a lot going on, if we can just keep it straight. 0344 499 1000. That video, however you dress it up, has infuriated so many people across the UK. Jez, says Margaret, it showed last night on TV that the leaflets were printed in a foreign language. Surely, if you don't speak the language of the country you are in, should you be allowed to vote? It looks like the lunatics have taken over the asylum. Dan from Kent, it's over for Britain, JK, if last night's election result is reflective of what's coming. No way will I be living in a country under a Green Party. They're nothing more than outrageous idiots. Rogers in Wales, I think this is a clear message and solution for Shabana Mahmood to prevent any further protests regarding illegal immigrants. She should respect the wishes that Gorton and Denton voted for and allow all illegal migrants to be housed there with their open border policy. Wow. Zach Polanski, this is Amanda, and his Green Party are an utter disgrace and an insult to British democracy and fair play. Canvassing for votes on the Gaza issue is beneath contempt. And Cliff in Berkshire, have I just woken up to a nightmare? Strip it down. A campaign video in Urdu. It's so difficult.
You had Labour and the Greens fighting over the Muslim vote. That's what we had, and Labour lost. So the Muslim vote came out very much in favour of the Greens, and they run one heck of a campaign, I have to say, did the Greens. Enthusiasm, young campaigners out on the ground, hitting the ground running. really getting the vote out, getting the Muslim vote out. And you're right, this Urdu video, I've never seen anything quite like it before in my time in British
We
politics.
couldn't run it during the campaign because we'd have been accused of being biased, but I want people to know. I also want you to hear Hannah Spencer's election speech. Can I just point out, democracy is democracy, and Hannah Spencer is the new MP, and yes, the Greens ran an effective campaign. But you have to ask yourself three things this morning, I think, right? Is reform now the real deal in terms of the only alternative to the Labour Party? Without any shadow of a doubt, I can tell you, the Greens ain't going to be the next election. If you strip back what that guy said, who was very erudite, spoke to Samara Gill, he said, they have my vote at the moment. There is no way in 3 years this bunch of nutjobs who want to legalise heroin are going to be the next government. That's Jeremy Kyle's opinion. Secondly, you look at what Advance UK does. I've heard lots of people going on about Restore Britain and all that. The party that is Reform, its vote that was national held up locally. What we're entering is into a world of, I'm not going to call it divisive politics, but certainly the campaign side was pretty hateful, it seems, on all sides. I think you'll be interested to hear Hannah's speech because she mentioned her personal life, she mentioned the Muslim vote, and then she slagged off anybody who's made a few quid and is successful. Have a listen, have a watch.
I didn't grow up wanting to be a politician. I'm a plumber. And 2 weeks ago, during all this, I also qualified as a plasterer. Because even in chaos, even under pressure, I get things done. I lived in this constituency at one of the most difficult and challenging periods of my life. I saw how strong the community was at holding things together. But I saw how much harder life is when the things around you are broken. The litter, the fly tipping, the dirty air. And when I moved, it became even clearer, and this is why I am fighting for the community that I lived in and that I still work in. To our Muslim communities who this week suffered an attempted attack during Ramadan, whilst I was being welcomed by women at a mosque in Longsight, someone just down the road walked into a mosque carrying an axe. And whilst we were gathered and eating together, an act of terror could easily have taken place. And I can't and won't accept this victory tonight without calling out the politicians and divisive figures who constantly scapegoat and blame our communities for all the problems in society. My Muslim friends and neighbours are just like me, human. We ran a hopeful campaign backed by thousands of volunteers and activists. We defeated the parties of billionaire donors.
Simon Danshut, your response to that?
Well, I think she's had a victory. She's going to be down there in Parliament, but I do think there are questions to be asked. I think Reform have to be better at getting their vote out. I don't think there's any doubt about that. You know, the turnout is 47%, so there's a lot of people who've stayed at home in this election.
Very important point.
The Muslim vote does come out and vote. There are questions, and Nigel Farage has touched upon it, about this issue about family voting, encouraging others to vote in a particular way. The volunteers that were monitoring that also said that there were a lot of voters taking photographs of their ballot paper, which is, I think I'm right in saying,
does it sound like
illegal.
Sour grapes, though, from the right? And I'm being completely honest when I ask you that.
You're right to say that, but I think this is a really important issue. This family voting is a new phenomenon. I've not seen it very much in previous elections, so it's relatively new, and it's a concern. 12%, they estimate, the volunteers who observe these elections say 12%, they estimate 12% involve family voting. That's phenomenally high.
If I was Nigel Farage and I took a breath this morning, this is exactly what I would be telling myself, that my vote locally stood up what it was nationally, 29%, that this seat has been held for as long as time began by the Labour Party, who trailed in third. I would absolutely believe there is now sectarian voting across the UK. And, of course, then I would say to myself, how is that going to change? But I would use this as a light on which to shine how people move forward. So much response already. Carl, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Well, can't believe it. Woke up this morning to go to work, thought I'd nip the old rubbish BBC on and have a quick look at what they've got to say and find out who won at the Gorton and Denton. And I can't believe that the Greens won. Oh, Hypno Tits and his crew. What's that say about the country if they're getting voted in? I mean, it's unbelievable. People are saying that the Muslims done the old family vote. I can well believe it, because I can't believe the country's so stupid to vote for a party that's going to legalise heroin and open all the borders.
That's the point. That is the point. And look, the interesting view this morning on the show, and I've said it from day one, is we will take all sides. We have got guests left, right and centre. Simon's with us as well. Cade Peace, right? Listen to this. Sorry, Jez, but I'm fast losing faith in Reform. They're sounding more like Labour with their whinging. They're not going to win every election. Reform is losing their identity. I'm not convinced they are the answer anymore. It saddens me to say this. Talk. Morning, Jez. So the people of Gorton and Denton want mass illegal immigration and the legalisation of hard drugs. What the hell is happening to the country, says Mike in Bryn Mawr. Very upset this morning. Doesn't understand it. Maggie, so pleased it's not about Reform not winning, but about Labour coming third after 100 years of holding the seat. I pity the residents of Gorton and Denton, where floods of wind will now be walking their streets. HMOs will be going up. Property prices will falling. Matt, excuse me, did a good campaign, but that's life. Sharon Miller, though, completely different side. I must say, Hannah Spencer's a breath of fresh air for an MP, considering the type of MPs we have in Parliament. Have you seen the state of them? It puts me off voting. There's the whole thing. Jez, what a dark day. I'm struggling to understand how certain minorities who say they oppose things like drugs and prostitution, gays, trans or certain social politics have ended up supporting the Greens. I'm trying to make sense of how those values line up. God help us at a general election. Jeff's in Bedford. Morning, Jeff. He says, Jez, if this is the quality and needs of Great Britain, the Greens and your first interview show that this country is finished. And talk, by-election results, Starmer responds, I don't know where there was a by-election. Who is Andy Byrne? I've been let down by my advisors. Could be right. Excuse me, a bit of a frog in my throat this morning. Can I make another point as well? Anybody out there agree with this? What would the Green Party, if I said to you, Simon Danshett, you landed in England, what does Green Party mean?
I think it's changed dramatically, isn't it? I thought the Greens were all about the environment,
yep.
But not now. They're a pro-Islamic party. I mean, there's no doubt about that. The big story, I think Reform has got a respectable result, as you point out.
Yeah.
They've got what they are polling, 29% of the vote. This was never a Reform area to win, really. Because it's too diverse, the constituency is too diverse. It's a big, bad day for Labour. I mean, total disaster. Their vote has been halved. It's bad news for Starmer. There will be a push now.
Do you think this will reignite a coup?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, they're already talking about it, this morning, about replacing him. And there will be a shift to the left, which is not what the public will want in the country as a whole, but Labour MPs will be tacking to the left because that's who they've lost to.
Well, that guy that was interviewed by Samara said it, didn't he? He said, the Labour Party isn't left-wing enough for me. And that old adage of, in fact, Starmer got them elected by moving towards the centre, and, of course, the left is now in control. I saw Lucy Powell, who is the deputy leader of Labour and, in fact, a close friend of Andy Burnham, stalking around the place. They will use it. So much response. Andy, good morning to you.
Morning, Jeremy. Just on the election in Gorton and Denton, this Hannah Spencer standing there in a speech saying she cares about community and all of this. Well, has she seen what heroin does to communities and people in communities and families? Does she care about that?
Do you know, I mean, you can't deny that that's a perfect... I mean, maybe I'm boring and old-fashioned at 60, right? These people aren't going to run the country, trust me. There is no way that a majority of people in this country are going to agree with the advocation of legalising, heroin, right? It is more frightening to think that there is sectarian voting. And by the way, there isn't a racist bone in my body. If people in the Muslim community want to vote for the Greens, then so be it. I think what's also interesting about this constituency is that George Galloway and his workers, what's it called? Is it the
Workers' Party?
Yeah, he undoubtedly would have hoovered up the Muslim vote, but he stood aside. So one wonders whether that was the beginning of the end. I think you're right about a reform in terms of the vote share. I think you're right in terms of they will have to prove to other people. I think we look at any other right-wing party and that's gone, so I think it's all on reform. Surely what Starmer's got wrong is, as you said, in attacking reform repeatedly, the Greens have snuck up on the inside.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not without a mention of the bloody environment, or Greenpeace, or Friends of the Earth, or fracking, or drilling, or trees, or water, or the rest of the rubbish they used to talk about.
Labour were just saying to the electorate, we are the ones that can beat reform, and that wasn't enough to get them over the line by any stretch. The whole strategy from day one has been wrong. They could have had Andy Burnham as the candidate.
Would he have won it, do you think?
Yeah, I think he would have come... Yeah, I do. I think he would have won it. I think people in the Muslim community would have come out in favour of him. I think he does very well in that community, and more widely, in fact.
This is interesting. Bobby says the takeover has begun, Sharia law within 5 years. But Andy Barron, check this, Si. The Greens can't even spell Gorton, G-O-R-T-O-N, as per their leaflets. I'm in Hull, and I got a leaflet from a friend of mine in the community, G-O-R-E-T-O-N. That's great, isn't it? That's brilliant.
It's worth bearing in mind that the Greens don't have the capacity to fight a general election in the way that they fought this by-election.
Absolutely.
So they had loads of capacity.
All eggs in one basket,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Let's cross back to Gorton and Denton. The defeated Conservative candidate joins us now. Charlotte Cadden received 2% of the vote. In total, her vote was 706. She came fourth. Charlotte, thank you for joining me. A very good morning and welcome to Talk Breakfast. Your response to last night?
Thanks very much, Jeremy. Well, I think some of your callers have mentioned it already, but I think, you know, reform threw the kitchen sink at this and assured everybody that it would be an easy win, and that's clearly not been the case. The result of this is alarming, not just for reform, but also for Labour as well. I mean, questions to be answered there about the leadership and the impact of those terrible policies on the residents of Gorton and Denton over the past 18 months, if not the whole country. But I think the fact that reform could not win this seat, having thrown all that money and all those resources at it, is very telling. And I know from being on the doorstep that, yes, I got 2% of the vote, but a lot of those people that voted reform were, you know, Tory voters in the past, and they will come back because they know we're fiscally responsible.
When you say, let's firstly deal with what you've said about the Reform Party, and I've pointed out that I mean, I'm just here to give facts. It struck me that in what we're saying, you are focusing on reform, and you're saying that many of those voters that voted for them and not you are disaffected Tories. Can I ask you, because I know you genuinely, do you believe that in 3 years what happened for the British public to stop listening to your party can be recovered? Because, I mean, I've said about Cami Badenoch, who I think is impressive. I think she's the William Hague of 2026. I think she's the right person at the wrong time. I don't think the British electorate are ready to forgive you, Charlotte, whatever the party puts forward. Will you agree with that or not?
This was a Labour stronghold, as we all know. Kemi has got some fantastic policies. We are fiscally responsible. She's going to bring us out of the European Court of Human Rights. We did have a plan to deal with immigration, to, you know, process illegal migrants in a third country, but Labour, you know, got rid of that as soon as they came in. So the policies that Labour have inflicted on the country over the last 18 months, this is one of the reasons why, you know, many residents in Gorton and Denton have voted Green. They don't even understand, I don't think, understand what those policies are for the Green Party, because they don't really talk about what the policies are underneath, other than, you know, they're going to make everybody equal and everybody well off.
But isn't that the point,
feasible.
Charlotte, with the respect? Isn't the point that actually you could say that the Greens, and Simon Dansugar's with me, an ex-Labour MP from the area who defected, but he was making the point earlier that it seems to us, in terms of journalism, that the Labour Party have concentrated on slagging off reform. The Tories, your opening gambit was, well, reform said they'd win it and they have thrown the kitchen sink. I would respectfully suggest that Matt Goodwin and reform got 29% of the vote, which is what they have scored across the UK in the last 207 opinion polls. So you could argue, I'm just being honest, that they've got the same figure. Whilst you've all been bitching with each other, this party has come from nowhere, concentrated all of its resources, I think even more so than reform, the Greens. And what frightens me about the Greens, Charlotte, as you quite rightly said, is, I mean, has enough been said by all you candidates? These people want to legalise heroin, for God's sake. The leader of this party said, and I quote, "I'll just go to Russia if I was the Prime Minister and just tell Vladimir Putin to give up his nuclear weapons." Let's call it out. They're nut jobs, and they've beaten all of you because you've spent most of the time bitching with each other, in my opinion. Just being honest.
To be fair, I haven't spent a lot of time bitching about the other parties. You know, we've had a fair fight here. We haven't committed any offences or any alleged offences in the last 3 weeks. You know, and we've had, you know, Kemi's got a lot of love on the doorstep, really, for, you know, how she's held Labour to account over the past few months.
But you only got 2% of the vote. I'm not having a go, Charlotte, but how can you?
No,
be
I
saying,
appreciate that.
How
I
can you say
appreciate
there's love
that.
on the doorstep when you got you got
Well,
2% of the vote?
Well, you know, we are coming back definitely under the policies that we've got for a stronger border and a stronger economy. And if you look at what the Greens are offering here in terms of putting heroin, crack cocaine onto the streets, the streets of Gorton and Denton will end up like something out of The Wire. Nobody wants this, but I think people don't understand it because they've never been told it or they've not read the policies.
So do you believe it would be fair to say?
Power.
Do you believe it would be fair to say then that both Reform and yourselves, but we're talking to you, the Conservative candidate, and I'm so grateful for you being on, should have spent more time stripping down the absolute absurdity of what the Green Party is all about? Do you think that, you said not yourselves, but this has descended into accusation and counter-accusation, and this party that is... Look, I said it to somebody just now, Charlotte, when I was growing up, the Greens, I thought they were interested in trees and rivers and the environment. They seem to have only done one thing. They seem to have been interested in gaining the Muslim vote. Their campaign video, tell me what you thought of a campaign video in Urdu, Charlotte Cadden.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's not something that I would support, and I don't support sectarian voting. I don't understand why people are voting for something that's happening thousands of miles away, that, you know, voting here and issues around Gorton and Denton will not get resolved by diverting attention into something that's, you know, in another part of the world. That's not what we're about as local MPs.
No.
So yeah, I don't understand that. I don't like sectarian voting, but it's gone on in the UK since, you know, since we've had immigration. Different groups of people have voted certain ways because they felt they needed to. But when they do that, they miss out on focusing on what's really important to local people, like reducing crime and antisocial behaviour and getting that grooming gang inquiry. So, you know, it's just a diversion as far as I'm concerned.
Do you think
and not helpful. And I think, you know...
Do you think that what happened last night in Gorton and Denton, and again, I very much appreciate it's been a long night being with us, do you think that that is going to be replicated in the May elections, or do you think this is a one-off?
In terms of it being the Greens that win, yeah, I think it's a one-off. I don't think they've got the capacity to run this type of campaign, as a previous caller said. So, yeah, I don't think that's going to be replicated in any way.
I'd like to thank you, though. I really do. It's been a long night, 706 votes, and brave enough, Simon, to come and have that conversation. And Charlotte Cadden from the Tory party, thank you very much indeed. We're going to go to a break just very quickly. She's right, isn't she? But her opening gambit was Reform didn't do it, Reform didn't do it. Everybody seems to have concentrated on Reform with respect, the Tory party and Labour. The Greens have snuck on the inside. You heard that guy say they're not left enough, the Labour Party. And I'll be accused of being biased. I'm not just giving you the facts. Reform's vote locally held up from what it was nationally.
Disaster for Labour, this by-election, but it's also bad news for the Conservatives. This is...
706 votes.
They've lost the deposit. They haven't done that since 1983.
In any constituency...
In a parliamentary election. Good fact. 1983.
Right, loads of you. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Anna, good morning.
Morning, Jez. Anna, sorry. First of all, I would say congratulations to the Green candidate and well done for showing the rest of us exactly what yourselves, your party... Oh my word, I'm so angry this morning, Jez, and I'm angry at all of the major parties because this is what you've allowed into our country. And if we do not stop this now, it just gets worse from here onwards. This just sends people like me running from Reform into the arms of Rupert Lowe. We can't wait 2 years. This only gets worse. Just sorry to ramble, but wow.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. 24 minutes to 7 o'clock. If you're waking up, Alarm Clock Britain, the news is simple. The Greens have secured a historic by-election victory in Gorton and Denton. Hannah Spencer becomes the new MP. Labour in third place, a seat they've held for 100 years. From the last election, their voters collapsed from 50% to less than half that. Reform, Matt Goodwin coming second with 29% of the vote. I'm just talking facts. What he got locally is what the Reform Party has got nationally. There has been already accusation and counter-accusation. Nigel Farage tweeted a few minutes ago, this election was a victory for sectarian voting and cheating. Matt Goodwin was a great candidate. Roll on May the 7th. Roll on. Goodbye Starmer and goodbye to the Tories. We heard from Charlotte Cadden, the Conservative MP, who said, yeah, there has been sectarian voting. We can prove that by playing yet again just a little bit. We weren't allowed to play this during the campaign. This is me doing it in a completely straight way. The party that won this election, this was their campaign video. I'm going to play you 20 seconds. Go.
गोर्टन और डेंटन एक जुल्म सियासतदान जीत सकता है अगर हम रिफॉर्म को रोकने के लिए ग्रीन को वोट ना दे।
मेरा नाम हना स्पेंसर है। मैं ग्रीन पार्टी की उम्मीदवार हूँ।
दुकानदार, सफाई करने वाले, ड्राइवर्स,
I'm not going to play anymore. I'm going to leave you to work that out. We say a very good morning. Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. How are you?
Well, my Urdu isn't that great today, so I actually no idea what she was talking about, but I do know just how shocking this result is. And I guess there's the sort of the bright side and there's the less bright side, and we can probably talk about both. I mean, on one level, that result is absolutely terrifying. And let me say bluntly that if you import the third world, then you import the third world problems and attitudes. And there we have it. Absolutely. In a nutshell, we had campaigning in another language. And that is, that actually, I'm afraid, has been going on in a number of constituencies where the spotlight hasn't been on those constituencies, including at council level. The kind of playing out of, in particular, Pakistani sectarian politics in other constituencies is something that I have been worried about and aware of for a long time. So that is terrifying. At the same time, I think I share your view on this, Jeremy, that when people realise what the Greens actually stand for, there will be a very different attitude to them going forward. And I truly believe that many of the people who voted for them in that constituency, hand it to Hannah Spencer. She won a good victory there numerically. And she is the new MP, and we all have to respect that result. But did the heavily Muslim vote contingent who backed her, do they realise what she stands for, she and her party, for example, on gay and trans rights? That is completely at variance with their own religious ideology. They are pushing for the hardening of legal rights for the trans community, to make gender recognition easier for people who want to change whether they're a man or a woman. I don't know many Muslims that back that.
I couldn't agree more, and the frustration that is for so many of us when you're in the middle of an election campaign. You have to play it straight down the line. I couldn't play the Urdu one. I completely agree with you that Hannah Spencer won the victory, and I do think the main parties, I include Reform in this, have spent their entire time, I put it to Charlotte Cadden, all that Starmer has talked about and all that Labour has talked about is Farage is a nightmare, he's a disaster, Reform are far right. All that the Conservative Party have said, don't vote for Reform, they're a disgrace, Kemi's on the way back, you got 2%. What I'd love to act against, though, if one lesson could be learned, and I'm not, listen, this is just my opinion, Damon from Wigan has said, what the hell is going on? This is a dangerous time for Britain. I can't believe where we're heading, and this has now put me off voting. Damon, that is exactly the wrong response to this. And if I was Nigel Farage, right, this morning, I would be saying, our vote locally held up nationally, 29%. This is a disaster for a sitting Prime Minister in a constituency that he's held for 100 years. And what we should take forward from this is that on the right of British politics, the only party you should be interested in reform, and we have to get out there and believe absolutely, as you said, Isabel, that when push comes to shove, people with a brain cell are going to go, right, so you really want to vote for people who want to legalise heroin? Ask nicely Vladimir Putin to put down his nuclear weapons. It's nuts, right? But they did the job. Democratically, they've won the election. But let's call this out for what this is. This is an example, I think, of where we could go, Damon, if we don't all start speaking up and vote with our feet. That's what I think, just as a voter.
Absolutely. Now, Nigel Farage, of course, he's going to be disappointed that his excellent candidate, who worked incredibly hard, didn't win. But actually, this result is very good for reform in the sense that you've mentioned a few times this morning. Reform's national vote share, according to the polls, is around 28, 29, 30% at the moment. And that by-election result came in spot on at that. And when you think about that particular seat with that demographic, I mean, it was something like 355 on Reform's target list. It was never one that Reform was going to think it had.
But you see, I get that, but the Conservative candidate, Charlotte Cadden, said on this station 15 minutes ago, Reform through the kitchen sink. And we've got to do all sides. George from Leicester says, please read this to Isabel. Nigel needs to stop moaning. If he can't beat him, join him. Why didn't he do the same thing as the Greens? He won't get my vote if he keeps complaining. Accept defeat honourably. I get that side of the argument, but it is also absolutely important, George, to point out that if we have arrived at a point in our country where sectarian voting, or proven, by the way, accusations of family voting, where people have taken their kids and walked into the booth and told their 18-year-olds where to vote, that is a worrying time for this country and needs to be called out.
Well, I listened to the failed Tory candidate a few moments ago, Charlotte, and, you know, all credit to her. It takes a lot of guts to go out and be a candidate for a party you pretty much know is going to be completely hammered in an area where you've got no base whatsoever. You know, that is a tough thing to do. So I'll give her credit for that. But she was just inaccurate when she said that Reform said winning that seat would be easy. Nobody in Reform thought winning that seat would be easy. Nobody at all. And she, in a conversation with you, Jeremy, she just kept going on about how the Tories are fiscally responsible. Well, if that was her pitch on the doorstep, I'm really not surprised that the party only polled at 700 or whatever it was votes and lost its deposit. What did she mean by that? What a load of old rubbish that was. But I think that the really important thing to do here is to zoom out from Gorton and Denton and look at what this means for politics as a whole in our country. And there are two big observations here. Labour has been completely hammered in that vote. That was their absolute heartland, and they have been smashed to smithereens. And there will be massive soul searching by the party leadership, by its strategists this morning. I think it's right that if Andy Burnham had been their candidate, they would have done a whole lot better, because he's got a lot of recognition and respect in that area. So on the one hand, you've got Labour, which is being swallowed up by this insurgent movement of nut jobs on the left, the Greens. And then you've got the Tory vote, which was just not even there. And the idea that the Tories are going to somehow rise from the ashes in time for the next election and become once again the party of the so-called right is completely for the birds. Now, if you look at it that way, what is the next election going to look like? The general election, the one that really matters. It looks as if it is going to be a fight between Reform and on the right, and on the left, the Greens and, you know, God knows what other raggle-taggle motley crew of crazies. Now, there's one thing, though, Jeremy, I really want to say that's important this morning, and it is something that is properly terrifying. Will a rattled Labour Party now resort to bringing in legislation for proportional representation?
Wow.
If they do that, we're all screwed. Those of us that believe the country does not want to go down the direction of legalized heroin and open borders and tax the rich until most of them have gone already. You know, we are
I have to jump in and say that I'm so with you, mate. This sounds terrible. I can only hope that what I'm about to say is right. Labour will get rid of Starmer. They will tack even further to the left to try and get that nut job Green vote back. They will suffer through sectarian voting. For me, I think you're right. Advance UK, no disrespect to anybody, Nick Buckley, who stood for Advance UK, defected from Reform, got less votes than the bloke that stood for the monster raving loony party. If this election locally tells me anything, it is that Reform is undoubtedly official opposition to Labour, and Labour's position is we are going to have to work out how we are it. It will be interesting. I just don't want anybody an alarm clock Brit. And I get what he was saying, George, but you know what? If you want change in this country and if you want the things to happen that so many tell me every day, sitting at home and moaning is not going to work. Sure, it's not a good morning for Reform, but they have to say, right, particular area, national vote held up, let's get out there and keep the message. For me, it's easy to sit in a TV studio. They've elected the people of Gorton and Denton, a woman, right, a woman who wants to legalise heroin, prostitution, and whose party and some of their values towards certain parts of the community are at complete odds with the people that voted for him. It's not going to happen. She won't even keep that seat. In a million years, she'll lose that at the next general election. It's about the next 3 years. Isabel, thank you so much indeed, my darling, for being on this morning. Really, really appreciate it. Isabel Oakeshott, Talks International Editor. 12 minutes to 7 o'clock. Simon Danshuk in a tick. Morning, Tony.
Good morning, Jez. Tony from Worcester. Regarding the Gorton by-election and the amazing Greens win, there's a couple of things to worry about, isn't there? I mean, the family voting, I think you call it. If people are being taken into the voting booth, I didn't think you could do that, and then they're just being told where to put the cross. That's a bit dodgy, isn't it? And also, with the Greens, who've clearly got the Muslim vote, I wonder how many Muslims know all of their policies, such as legalisation of heroin.
Couldn't agree more, Tony. Listen, people will make of it what they will. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. If you're waking up, it is Friday, the 27th of February, and the Greens and Hannah Spencer have won a historic victory today. She is the new MP for Gorton and Denton. She polled 14,980 votes. The Reform Party, 10,500, 29% of the electorate. Their local figure was their national figure, and a humiliated Labour Party trailing in third. More new questions for Keir Starmer. Simon Danshuk is with us and has been for the last hour. You started by saying this is about the Labour Party. What did you make of Isabel's comments about Reform?
I think it's really interesting, especially Isabel's comments. Two important points. One, people should get out there and vote. Voting is crucially important. And secondly, this election shows that the two main parties, Labour and the Conservatives, are not now in the running. No. It's possible for people to vote for alternative parties like Reform. So you're exactly right. I think Reform are now becoming the main opposition, and that's a real problem for the Conservatives.
Do you agree with me? This Green thing is, and by-elections, by the way, throw out the most ridiculous results. This isn't going to work. She's not going to win that seat in the general election, is she?
No, and the Greens aren't going to do anywhere near as well in a general election. But it's worth pointing out that they are in second place in 39 Labour parliamentary seats. So there's 39 Labour MPs in Parliament who are being chased by the Greens.
Do you agree with me that their answer to this will be to tack to the left?
Yes,
the Labour
I
Party?
do.
Let's go live. We've got people all over the place. A very good morning. Is he in his bedroom? He's always with me. Charlie Rowley's not in his bedroom. Good morning, love. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning to you.
Simon's here as well. Your response quickly to the overnight result from Gorton and Denton, Charlie Rowley?
Total disarray within the Labour Party. This was a safe Labour seat, one of their safest in the country. They have lost it cataclysmically. The Tory vote collapsed. We knew that was going to happen. This isn't an area where the Tories have done well. In fact, they've gone backwards in the last two elections, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But what is really interesting is in an area that does not vote necessarily to the centre-right of politics, they have had Reform in second place. That is huge to me, because what that says to me in other areas of the country, maybe like the northeast areas that voted for Boris Johnson in 2019, areas that voted for Brexit. When the choice at the next election could be between Reform and Labour, people will vote Reform. So if you're in Reform HQ, I take comfort from their vote tonight. I think if you're in the Labour Party, my word, the Prime Minister will be scratching his head. Already, people are coming out, including the Deputy Leader, Lucy Powell, has already said that, you can only beat Reform by essentially not repeating what they do. So she's looking for the Labour Party to tack to the left, exactly what you were saying. I think that would be a disaster, because that would just push even more people into, I think, Reform's camp. I think this is a really bad night for the Labour Party.
I think it's really interesting, Simon, what Charlie's just said, actually, because, I want to be as balanced as I can. I think we had the Conservative candidate on, we had a Green supporter on, but the point about Reform is this, and Charlie said it and I've said it, the local vote was the national vote. Advance got less. I've got a text here. Advance the same as Rupert Lowe. They're all behind the Looney Party. There's only one opposition, and that's Reform. What will be interesting is the light will shine on Labour, how they respond. Charlie, are you with us that the Greens... This happens in elections. They fought a good campaign. Democratically, they've won. She's not going to win it at the general election, is she?
I don't know, actually, because the turnout at this by-election was higher than what it was at the general elections. Yep. So, and look, if they've campaigned in the way, and you can't, I think the way that the Greens campaigned was totally wrong. I don't want to see in the UK election literature that doesn't have writing in English. Frank, I just think that is a fundamental, but that highlights the problem. You deal with the cards that are dealt in front of you when it comes to a campaign. There are obviously there's a large community there, a large Muslim community, whose first language clearly is not English, and the Greens capitalise on that by putting out campaign videos in Urdu, which appeal to that group and that section of society. They might do it again. What we have to do is make sure that all governments, whether it's local, national, are making sure that that integration that we talk about is actually fulfilled, where we have people in this country that know the cultures, know the laws, know the language, and abide by them.
Simon, sectarian voting, Nigel's talked about, Charlie's talked about it, family voting as well. Is it sour grapes from Reform, or does it need calling out, and how do we change it?
I think it has to be called out. It's the same with postal voting as well. There's a number of ways in which our democratic system works that needs upholding, and this is another example of where it's failing. This was strengthened in the legislation in 2023 around family voting to discourage exactly this, and yet it's happening in greater proportions than we've ever seen before. So I think it's right to challenge this and to say it's not acceptable, and to try and create legislation that stops it. I think that's exactly right. But the Green has won. It's a democratic process, and she's in there. But where Charlie, I think, is particularly right is this is a traditional Labour seat, and Reform have done well in polling at 29%. A centre-right party doing so well in a traditional Labour seat is not a bad result for Reform.
Excellent. Thank you both, men. Just very quickly, I'm going to fire quick questions at both of you. Charlie, does this... you made a really good point about the Reform vote. It can be taken in a positive way. They are now the official opposition. Is Starmer going to go before the May local elections on the back of this, or would nobody take the poison chalice that is the leadership of the Labour Party right now?
Yeah, I think no one will probably want to take the poison chalice, but we still are still stuck. The Labour Party cannot get rid of the Prime Minister unless they unite behind a challenger. And at this minute, there still isn't a front runner to do that. So we still have Starmer. He'll still come out this morning and give us whatever.
We did very well. Gentlemen, I'm sorry, it's been a manic morning. Charlie Rowley, I saw you earlier, but we won't talk about that. Very nice to see you, dear. Simon Dunshire, thank you so much. Both of them will be back on a normal show next week, but it's madness. The Greens have won in Gorton and Denton. Politically across the spectrum, we have response from almost everybody. And get your calls and messages in. Phil, good morning.
Hey, Jezza. Phil in Nottingham here, mate. Love the show. One good thing about the result in Gorton and Denton, matey, is now at least we know which area of the country to house the illegal immigrants that are coming over.
This is the political asylum, current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up. I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
We're with you every weekday night, Monday to Friday, 7 until 10 p.m, right here on Talk.
Hello from Crowborough, where the local residents are enraged with what has happened to their community merely overnight, when just 27 single male asylum seeker illegal migrants were bussed into their military training camp. Behind me are local residents, people from all over the country. Shabana Mahmood has said that this is an effective way of getting rid of those expensive, flashy asylum hotels. But unfortunately, these people are still placed within the community.
Whole town is very afraid because these are unvetted men from countries that are, the government warn us not to go to.
I've got an 18-year-old daughter and she gets the bus opposite the camp. Do you feel safe for her? No, so that will have to stop. Right. We'll either have to wait with her or take her to wherever she needs to go.
The reason I'm here today is because I live in Crowborough and my family, I've got a wife and children, and just worried about, my wife walking to work and my sons, walking about. Anything can happen, can't it, that nowadays and age, what's going on, what's happening in this country. So I'm just concerned and frightened,
There was support from other towns, other communities, because of course Shabana Mahmood has threatened other communities, and she said they're going to open site after site after site. Well, I would hope that if she's going to try and do that, she learns some lessons about the way she's done it in Crowborough, because this is not finished. We are not finished objecting to this plan.
Crowborough says no! Crowborough says no! Crowborough says no!
We would urge her to reconsider, and whatever she does, she needs to talk to the people that she's imposing these things on.
If you had a direct line to Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood, what would you say to them?
Look after your most vulnerable first. It's your priority to look after your vulnerable.
If they're bringing illegal immigrants into a camp in the dead of night, why are they doing that? They're doing that because it's disingenuous, it's dishonest, it's covert, and they're trying to keep the reality away from the local community of what they're actually doing to us. We've now got to the end of the entrance to the camp, we've got cameras, we've got police drones. It's like a cloud that's come over this community.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, welcome back, or good morning, and welcome to Talk Breakfast. It's the home of common sense. It is, of course, the home of the alarm clock Britain, and there's only one story in town. You're waking up to the news that Hannah Spencer, the Green candidate, becomes the brand new MP for Gorton and Denton. Reform in second place, the Labour Party in third. So much fallout from an election that so many people have had their eyes on, a split constituency, much criticism of all the candidates, much bitching that went on. At the end of the day, the facts are these. Labour has been in power in this constituency for 100 years. In the last election, it had 50% of the vote. Last night, the Labour vote fell to 26%. 26%. Reform, it's Matt Goodwin, 10,578 seats, 29% the man got locally, which is exactly the figure that Reform have been polling at nationally for the last few months or so. But Hannah Spencer, they've done an amazing job. She snuck up on the rails. It seemed to me that Labour were bitching about Reform and the Tories were bitching about Reform, and the Green Party have done what they've done. The democratic process is the democratic process. Let me start by saying that. But I am not going to do this show unless it's about honesty. And during this election campaign, when you're broadcasting, you won't want to know this. I'm just going to tell you there's a thing called purdah, which basically means one has to be as balanced as possible. The people of Gorton and Denton is populated by a large Muslim population. That's fine. That's absolutely right. Everybody has a chance to vote. There have already been accusations this morning about sectarian pressure, about family voting. But let me ask you this, and that was Nigel Farage's tweet earlier on. The election was a victory for sectarian voting and cheating. Matt Goodwin was a great candidate. Roll on May the 7th. It'll be goodbye Starmer and goodbye the Tory party. Lots of people agreeing. Some have said, come on, sour grapes, deal with it. I'm going to play you a video that the Green Party ran as their promotional video in the campaign that we were not allowed to play. Ladies and gentlemen, this encourages you to vote for the Greens in Gorton and Denton. Have a listen, have a watch.
गोर्टन और डेंटन एक जुल्म सियासतदान जीत सकता है अगर हम रिफॉर्म को रोकने के लिए ग्रीन को वोट ना दें।
मेरा नाम Hannah Spencer है। मैं Green Party की उम्मीदवार हूँ।
Now, I don't know about you, that goes on for 30 seconds, right? I've said it before. I am delighted, or have been in the past, to be in a country that is multicultural, and there are people who have come to this country and been successful, and it doesn't matter about the colour of your skin. But if you are telling me that a local election, right, should be based on one issue and one issue only, which is Gaza, and nobody likes what's happening before people start throwing stuff at me. If you're telling me that the people of Gorton and Denton are more interested in Gaza than they are in with a failing health service, an education system that's on its backside, potholes the size of craters in their roads, a tax system that's unfair, a government that's in freefall, then there is something wrong with British politics. But to balance that, as I keep saying, the Greens won the election. Reform's vote stayed up. Already you'll have heard Rachel Maskell, the Labour MP, calling for Keir Starmer's head. Good morning, Damon.
Morning, Jeremy. Damon from Wigan. What the bloody hell is going on? I do not believe it. The Greens have won Gorton and Denton. This really has put me off voting. Really put me off voting. And I've voted since I was 16. I just, I can't believe how you can have policies on Gaza and things happening all over the world apart from what's happening in this country, and you win.
Damon, I can only say this. I've had it all morning. Oh, this puts me off. That is not going to wash if you don't vote. I mean, what was it in this by-election? Was it, Christian, was it 47% of people turned out? More than the election, the general election. People need to come out and they need to have their say. Very quickly, I should be reading else as well. Jez, can you tell me how Advance UK did? Their candidate, Nick Buckley, of course, used to be a reformer. Yeah, I'll be absolutely straight with you. Nick Buckley and the Advance UK party got 154 votes, and this is a fact. That was less than the monster raving loony party. Let's cross to the United States of America to the Sun's editor-at-large. I'd love to know what the world thinks of this. Harry Cole, a very good morning, evening, afternoon, not sure where you are, but you're looking rough and ready, kidder.
Oh, God, rough and ready with a bit of a cold, but no, stayed up to what's the by-election result, because it does have massive implications for the wider West. It has implications for everyone. This is an astonishing result. You've touched on it there in your introduction, Jeremy. Campaigning in Urdu, images, blasted around a Manchester district of Benjamin Netanyahu. What the hell has he got to do with local politics? The Greens played a very divisive card here, campaigning incredibly hard on Gaza, on global affairs, on anti-Israel stuff in one part of the constituency that has lots and lots of Muslims, and in white working class areas they were talking about the cost of living and the fact that no one can afford a holiday and more normal bread and butter British political issues. And I don't think the most startling thing for me about last night, it wasn't the result. We kind of knew where it was heading with that result. It was about 1 minute past 10 when a group called Democracy Volunteers put out an emergency release. Now, this is an academic-led group that monitor elections around the world. They've been scrutinising elections in Britain for 10 years, and they have said, and they were alarmed, that they saw the most amount of family voting. This is people being led into ballot boxes and told where to put their cross. We all know what that kind of means and who's doing it, and they've said that actually, if you drill down to the data, they were at about 35 polling stations across the constituency yesterday during voting. They saw 68% of those polling stations this practice taking place. They estimate that 12% of the votes they saw cast in Manchester yesterday had influence of family influence, or people being put under duress, or people going into ballot boxes together. That's the stuff you read about from, distant, faraway lands, not Britain's second city.
But the problem you've got is, and I'm going to do a four-way. I've never done this before, Harry. I want you to say that. The thing is, Harry, right, the truth is there are people saying this is outrageous. I share that outrage. I share it with you. There are other people saying this is sour grapes. Let's head back to Gorton and Denton. Let's include Samara Gill, breakfast reporter there, was live on the ground, now inside. You spoke to a Green reporter or supporter earlier. This family voting accusation that Harry's just talked about, is that being talked about this morning?
Yes, it really is, actually. Harry is completely right and on the money there, as per usual. It's a massive issue here, obviously, because of the Gorton being now included in the election. You have got a big wave of big Islamic families that vote a certain way. Now, a lot of them used to vote for Labour. Now, a lot of them vote for the Greens because of their very punchy election tactics and almost Mamdani style social media campaigns in certain different languages, everything absolutely generated in order to pick up that vote. And I'm not just accusing Muslims of doing that, but it's very interesting when you see that sort of behaviour and how that could potentially affect the next general election. I mean, even that Green supporter that I spoke to just sort of brushed it off and said, oh, but that's family, isn't it? I don't know. My family doesn't usher me into a voting booth and tell me who to vote for. This seems like sectarianism at its finest, and I think it will be a real problem in the future.
Absolutely right. Let's bring in James Price, former government advisor. James, good morning, my friend. Nice background. Can I just say that Isabel Oakeshott said earlier, and I think she's dead right, she took three things from this morning's election. One is that Labour have been hammered in a heartland seat that they've held for 100 years. I don't want to upset you, but the Conservative vote, 2%, absolutely non-existent. She might have got some traction at PMQs, but is Kemi Babe not cutting through in the country? No. And Reform, yes, some people are saying sour grapes, talking about family voting and sectarianism. That's true, though. But they held up locally, James, at 29%, which is exactly what they got nationally.
Yeah, all of those things are right. It's great to see Harry staying up, by the way, over from the States. And these wider implications for the West is bang on, because this isn't just happening in Britain. This is happening in other Western European countries now. We're seeing it happening in the United States as well. The Democrats have what they call their Michigan problem, because the people who live in Dearborn in Michigan act in exactly the same way as we've seen happening in Gorton and Denton now. I've seen it as a campaigner in the past, where you knock on a door and somebody answers it, and they'll be wearing an abaya or a hijab or something. Their English is not that great, and they say, I don't know this is for my husband, and they wander off, and the husband comes along and says, yeah, we vote Labour. And that's happened to me a lot in the past. And it's interesting to see now that sectarian vote, that big bloc vote, doesn't vote Labour anymore, because the Greens have managed to weaponise, not just, again, as Harry says, pictures of Netanyahu, but the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, as well, popping up in these videos to exploit another kind of sectarian hate. Interesting to see if Labour is quite so comfortable and relaxed with all of this when it's not going their way. That'd be very interesting to see.
Completely agree, Harry. Two things. Does this get replicated, or am I off my tree? This isn't going to be happening at a general election. If I was Nigel Farage, I'd use this as the wake-up call. But what does it say about Keir Starmer, pal?
Look, I think we all know that Keir Starmer is in office but out of power. He reminds me a lot of a post-2017 election Theresa May, where The country knew she was a dud. The media knew she was a dud. The MPs knew they were a dud. They sort of scramble around the House of Commons, whispering day in, day out, oh, God, what do we do? How do we get rid of her? How do we get rid of him? At some point, they're going to have to strike, because if this result was replicated across the country, the Labour would have gone from an historic election victory to basically a non-existent party. He's got crucial May elections, the UK midterms, as I'm trying to rebrand them, in a few weeks' time. If the Greens pull off something like this and Reform pull off something like this across those elections that Labour tried to stop even happening in vast parts of the United Kingdom, he's in for a really rough ride. I don't know when he's going to go, but his premiership is all but done. I can't see him fighting the next election. What is clear is he is, those polls that show him being a historically deeply unpopular Prime Minister are accurate. This is a seat that Labour won with 50% of the vote in 2024. They barely got half of that this time. But also, as you said to James there, it's a death of the two-party system. The Tories not even on the pitch. Combined, Labour and the Conservatives, the two parties naturally of government in this country, got less than a third of the vote. Something really interesting, something quite scary in places is happening. And if this by-election isn't a warning sign for us all to wake up and start paying attention to the complete splits across the political system, then I don't know what is.
I completely agree. And James, Isabel Oakeshott made a comment earlier which sort of sent chills down my spine. She said, if the Labour Party does not see an end to this disaster and even, replaces Starmer and still the polls don't move, do you, like her, share the fear that they might start thinking about proportional representation as a way to somehow cling hold of power?
I wouldn't put anything past Labour. Would they start giving the vote to Europeans with settled status here in the UK? Because if you're a Commonwealth citizen, you can vote in the United Kingdom, theoretically, if you apply to. You've got a sort of theoretical over 1 billion people in our sort of voting system. You're allowed to vote technically. You can just come over here. And this happened in the last general election. So you're already seeing the voting being messed around with. You're seeing votes at 16. I think that might even actually come to bite Labour on the behind again, because all these 16-year-old kids are either going to be voting Reform because they've seen Nigel Farage on TikTok if they're male, and if they're female, they'll probably be voting for the Green Party, because one of the biggest splits we're now seeing is on sex lines. We're seeing women going off to the left and men staying broadly where they are, but a little bit off to the right.
And how ironic is that the party that the winning MP comes from think that a woman can have a penis and they can't even differentiate? And Samara, can I bring that up with Samara quickly? Because one of the things that sort of came into all of this was that what the Greens... I mean, all three of you respond, right? But when I was growing up, the Greens were about trees and oceans and plastic and fish and stuff like that. Not to mention, Samara Gill, of anything environmental, all about Gaza. And also, so much of what the Green Party believe for would not stand up in a Muslim household. I don't get it.
It's such a good point, and it seems like the Greens are only green just by heritage at this point. I mean, you can't really pinpoint an environmental policy that they have. They've managed to galvanise this caucus of Muslim voters and young disenfranchised people and bring them together, which is a real feat, to be honest, politically, because you're right. I mean, the leader can't even define what a woman is, but you've got a very big conservative sort of vote that he's mopped up. So they've really been able to divide and conquer with their strategy here. And I think it's quite interesting to see how they've been able to do that. The Your Party, which I don't even know who the leader of that is it Zara Sultana? Is it Jeremy Corbyn? They were not able to do that so effectively. So what you have here is a real far left party that is organised, professionalised, and knows exactly where to chase a voter base. And that's something we haven't seen in a long time. The Greens have totally discarded any sort of love for the environment or net zero. That's not what they're running on now. They're running on a pro-Gaza, high taxes, crack cocaine and heroin ticket, and it seems to be working.
And isn't that shocking? Just to finish, I mean, both of you, the boys, very, very quickly. Harry, I will rail against the people who are contacting us saying, oh, my God, I can't vote anymore. This stuff needs to be called out. This is a seminal moment. If I was Nigel Farage, I would be using this to say to the British people, if this is a route that we go down, it'll happen if you don't get off your backsides and get out and vote.
Absolutely, we now need tactical voting against the Greens. They made it like a joke, dancing in the streets, led by a man who can't dance, who looks like he brushes his teeth with a hammer. But under the veneer of cringe, they want to legalise drugs. They want to mangle teenagers and allow all of that trans stuff back into the debate. You know, they're in bed with the Islamic community while also wanting to ban female-only spaces. Well, tell that to the mosque owners, and that's before we even get to them wanting to give up our nuclear deterrent, leave NATO, abolish the army, and bankrupt the country with taxes. These people are dangerous, and they must be stopped.
Can I just say, God, I've missed you, Cole. Come home. JP, HC, SG, I love you all. Thank you very much indeed. Morning, Wayne.
Good morning, Jezza. So, interesting results there. I think this is a prime example of playing the man, not the ball. Forget about the rest of the Green policies. They will never fit within the Muslim religion and faith. However, you say a bit of Urdu, you talk about Gaza, you get the votes. That's all it's about. I think we are in for 3 years of some very individualized, sectarian, and really dirty politics. I will play the man, don't worry about the ball.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, have taken that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 7:22. We're live across the UK. What is it? Friday the 27th of February. We're taught the home of common sense and the home of alarm clock Brits. And there's only one story in town. You are waking up to the news that the Green Party have secured a historic by-election victory. Hannah Spencer, the plumber, becomes the new MP for Gorton and Denton. She forces Labour into third place. And our take from this whole day so far is as follows. Look, Labour have been hammered in a Heartland seat that they held for 100 years, OK, into third place. What do they get? 26% of the vote, down from over 50% at the general election. The Labour Party already questioning itself, and Keir Starmer this morning. Carl Turner, who's been a big critic of Sir Keir Starmer on this show before 8 o'clock. Reform. Nigel Farage has been accused by some people of, always crying over spilt milk. Actually, what he's talking about is This election, he said in a tweet, was a victory for sectarian voting and cheating. You heard it there from Harry Cole. We weren't able to tell you during the election campaign for fairness, but the election campaign video for the Green Party was in Urdu, ladies and gentlemen, right? The Muslim vote has come out in support of Hannah Spencer. That is absolutely true. But what does it say for the bigger ramifications of politics in this country? Loads of you responding, a lot of you going, oh, it's the beginning of the end. You can't think that. You've got to do something about it. Locally, I have to say this about Matt Goodwin and Reform. Their vote at 29% held up with what the party is getting nationally. The Tories, non-existent, 2%. Kemi Baden not doing well at Prime Minister's Question Time, but that is not transferring to the doorsteps. Let's say good morning to Matt. Morning, Matt.
Morning, Jeremy. It's Matt from Doncaster. People going into voting booths with other people and coercing them into where to put their vote is wholly and morally illegal. So surely this whole Gorton and Denton sounds like a bloody comedy show, doesn't it, from the Ronnie Barker sketch show? Yes, about right. But surely it's wholly and morally illegal and ought to be declared null and void.
Well, I don't know about null and void, but what I think it does is it raises concerns about the high levels of sort of scrutiny. I think that's fair enough. I don't think it's sour grapes. We've got our reporter Samara Gill live at Gorton and Denton this morning, and she said that this campaign has been punctuated by dirty tricks and underhand tactics, and that is a concern for many. Good morning to John in Angus. Jez, you've gone about family voting. I think a long, hard look needs to be taken about postal voting. It was a great idea when it was brought in, but it's also getting abused massively in all elections. Good morning to Ian. Stop whinging. The Greens won fair and square, and Gaza is an issue for many of us. We care about it internationally. I do as well, Ian. I'm just not sure, right, that the local people of Gorton and Denton need that to be the #1 concern in their life, when in fact the very lives that Hannah Spencer talked about in her acceptance speech about, what was it she said? We don't get to see a doctor, the air's rubbish, we can't get jobs. Well, she said that to a certain part of the constituency, but to the other part of the constituency she talked only about Gaza. We have to call this out for what it is. I absolutely would say to you, Ian, and I've said all morning, democracy is democracy, and Hannah Spencer won, and fair play to her. And I think that all the parties can learn from what the Greens did. In fact, what the Greens did in my mind was very much like what the Liberal Democrats did in the general election. They focused on a certain set of issues. They focused on a certain area. Good morning to Jonathan Bradford. Great show on John. Oh, he's Rotherham. He's called John Bradford from Rotherham. It gets bizarrer by the minute. Just a quick thought as a modern languages teacher. Would it not be a great idea if Reform did a promotion in Urdu explaining the LGBT beliefs of the Greens? Would that not be fighting fire with fire? Could be a thought, because nobody at all is able to understand how the Green Party's view on the trans community, excuse the pun, transfers to support from the Muslim community. I mean, that's a question for you, if you'd like to let me know. We'll say a very good morning to the chief political writer at Spiked Online, Brendan O'Neill. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, thanks, Jeremy.
Initial response on Friday the 27th of February as Hannah Spencer becomes the Green MP for Gorton and Denton, my friend.
Well, congratulations to Hannah Spencer. I agree with you. She won. That's it. I don't think it should be made void or anything like that. But we have to speak frankly, don't we? And I think this election is proof that multiculturalism has failed. Because what we saw, the divisiveness, the sectarianism, the exploitation of one community against another, it has been a really depressing and tragic spectacle. I mean, we had campaign leaflets in Urdu and Punjabi. We saw a campaign leaflet showing Starmer next to Modi, the Prime Minister of India, which I think was a dog whistle to whip up anti-Hindu animus. We saw an obsession with Gaza, an obsession with the so-called evils of Zionism. In their effort to get the Muslim vote out, which they seem to have done very successfully, the Greens played a deadly sectarian game. And I would call this is the Islamo-left. This is what happens when the left links arms with Muslim voters and Islamist movements in order to gain power. I think everyone will lose out as a result of this.
I've got to play this to you, my friend, because we are mates. This is just in. This is the leader of the Green Party, Zach Polanski, saying that the Gorton and Denton win sends hope for our entire country. Go, Zach.
I think this sends a message of hope to the entire country. We have proven we can stop both the Reform Party and this failing Labour government. Hannah Spencer has been an incredible candidate. She's going to be an amazing MP. This is someone who knows the value of work, who comes from the local area, who didn't get into politics because she wanted to be something, but because she wanted to do something. And the entire country, and especially Gorton and Denton, are about to see what a Green MP can get done. I have no doubt she will hold the Prime Minister to account on a whole range of issues. She will not stop working tirelessly every single day. And you know what? For a politician, she's also going to be a lot of fun. And I think that can be underestimated sometimes.
Your response to that, Brendan?
My God, he's just comes out with these platitudes that are completely meaningless, just reels them off one after another. Hope, fun. You know, what is he talking about? The thing is that, you know, with the Green Party, I think we have to recognise who is voting for the Greens. And it is really a combination of angry Muslims, left behind Muslim communities, and the middle classes. Middle-class students, middle-class leftists, people who come from relatively privileged backgrounds. It's a combination of those two sides of society that are voting for the Green Party, whereas working-class voters are much more interested in taking a punt on reform. They're much more interested in what reform has to offer in terms of fixing our broken borders, fixing the immigration system, changing economic life, giving real hope to working class communities.
Do you agree with me that actually, do you agree with me? There's a lot of people saying, oh, it's sour grapes of Farage to put out that tweet. I think we have to call out sectarian voting and that we have to call out the family voting. But I think we also have to be honest. And I know Nigel, and he will use this, and I think he'll be right to use this and say quite categorically, this will happen. Surely what last night has proven, though, Brendan, overall, is that Reform is the only right wing. And in fact, it's now the official opposition, without any shadow of a doubt. Advance UK got less votes than the monster raving loony party. Let's nail that. This is on Reform. They are the official opposition. And actually, you know, think about it. Labour heartland hammered, 100 years. Starmer will go. They'll swing to the left. That's a fact. The Tory vote non-existent. I said it already. Kemi Badenoch might be all right at Prime Minister's Question Time. It's not transferring. And the Green Party, are they going to win this seat in the general election? Maybe, maybe not. They're not going to do any more than that, because what needs to be said, right, what needs to be said, and I'll be putting this later to the Green Party peer Jenny Jones, how does their view on trans transpire to their views on the Muslim community? Why, by the way, for a party that's called the Greens, have I heard sod all about the environment? All I've heard about is Gaza. They're just the Labour Party to the left, aren't they?
Yeah, you know, they're much worse than the Labour Party, I would say. They're actually, I think, quite dangerous. And this is a party that doesn't know what a woman is and would happily let men go into women's changing areas and women's domestic violence shelters. This is a party which next month is going to take a vote on whether Zionism is a form of racism and whether we should support Palestinian resistance. We all know what Palestinian resistance means. It means violence against Jews who live in the Holy Land. This is a party that poses as anti-racist, anti-divisive, anti-fascist. They're always accusing Reform of being divisive. The real divisive party is the Greens. They have policies which I think are quite bigoted, very destructive, not good for women, not good for Jews, and not good for the country more broadly.
In terms of going forward, what do you say? And I mean, you and I are probably born of the same view. What do you say to the people who throw their hands in the air this morning, waking up and they're going, for Christ's sake, the Greens are in, I might as well not vote? That's fundamentally and exactly the wrong thing to do, right?
Oh, it could not be more wrong to think that. It really couldn't. And that might be one of the problems in Gorton and Denton, because I have a suspicion that, you know, working class communities, sadly, are often a little less likely to vote than other communities. That is the truth of it. And we all understand why, because they've been sold out so many times by so many parties. So that's the wrong message entirely. What people should take from this is that Reform is nipping at the heels of the establishment. A one-off Green victory in a by-election does not change that. Reform is the only game in town. Forget all those other vain, narcissistic right-wing projects. Forget the Greens, who I think will do well in some parts of the country, but completely flounder everywhere else. The only game in town is Reform. They can take on Labour, they can take on the Tories, and they can win the general election. That's what people have to think.
And we've got 30 seconds. Isabel Oakeshott said that one of her fears is that in tacking to the left, the Labour Party might well turn around and try and bring in proportional representation. Quick response to that?
They may well do that, but I think they're not going to be able to do that before the next election. And if Nigel keeps playing his cards right in the way that he has been, reform could cause the biggest upset in British politics in 100 years.
Great to have you on, mate. A quick one this morning, but we love your involvement. Thank you as ever. Brendan O'Neill, Chief Political Writer at Spiked Online. 0344 499 1000 for your calls and for your voice notes, your text to 87222. Start your message with the word talk. What do you make of it? The Greens' Hannah Spencer democratically has won. Gorton and Denton, the fallout is huge. What are your views? What are your opinions? Morning, Wayne.
Morning, Jezza. It's Wayne from Erdington in Birmingham, mate. When you go into a polling booth, it is singular. See, the thing is, they don't speak English, so they certainly can't read it. So that's another question altogether. Should they even be given a vote? The answer to that is a firm no. This is mental, mate. I can't believe what I'm watching, listening to daily. I'm sick of it, mate. Keep up the good fight, Jezza.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 25 to 8. We're live across the UK. It's all about Gorton and Denton. Let's get a Tory perspective now. We'll cross to Millbank. Matt Vickers, Tory Party Deputy Chairman. Good morning, Matty.
Good morning, Jezza. How's it going?
I can't even see you for the microphone. You're looking very important this morning. The little scarves on the desk, they're all good stuff. Matty,
Sure.
I'd love your response. People are waking up, they're throwing their hands in the air. The truth of the matter is, historic victory for the Greens. Democracy is democracy. Well done, Hannah Spencer. Labour hammered in their own heartland. Hammered. A seat they've held for 100 years. Their vote halved. The Tory vote, factually, completely non-existent, 2%, lost your deposit. How do you respond to that, Matt Vickers?
So I'll bring you on to our vote first. I think, do you know what happens in by-elections across the country? People rally behind whoever has the best possible chance on that day. If you look at the Labour Party, in July 24, they won a stonking majority in Parliament. A couple of years before, in Cheshire and Amersham, in that by-election, their vote share fell from 13% to 1.6%. We were fifth there at the last general election. It was never our fight. That said, we had a great candidate who did her thing, and I don't think it's any...
We had Charlotte on earlier.
We had Charlotte
on earlier.
She's actually an incredible woman who has a lot to contribute and would be a fantastic MP. But I think that is... Most people at home know exactly where it's at. This wasn't our fight. This is representative of what happens in by-elections, very different from the national picture. But the reality is there was three people who had a lot at stake yesterday. We had the Labour Party. This has been a safe Labour seat for decades.
100 years.
A Labour MP said,
Yep.
yeah, a Labour MP said that to lose this to the Greens would be existential for the Labour Party. And we know why the Labour Party are hemorrhaging votes, because of the damage that they're doing to this country, to our economy, to all those young people now record levels of unemployment amongst graduates, struggle to get a job, struggling to get, because people are being put out of work. Our economy is being destroyed by Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer. They've broken promises to WASPy women, to pensioners, to farmers. Well, any promise that was made seems to have been broke. U-turn after U-turn. A disastrous government. It's time for Starmer to go. But then there was other stakeholders in this. You've got Reform, who claimed they could win. Who've gone in there, threw the kitchen sink at it, and it hasn't come their way. You know, the crest of the wave that Reform were on, people were anticipating the winning. They thought they could win this. It hasn't happened. Instead, we've got a Green MP. And Greens, people like to think that these fluffy people who go around hugging trees, actually, they're quite dangerous people. These are people who think we should be legalising all drugs. They think we should be legalising sex work, that we should have brothels on every high street. They want to say goodbye to our nuclear deterrent. They're quite scary people with quite scary views.
Can I jump in, though, on that?
More of them in Parliament is dangerous.
Can I jump in on that? Because there's so much I want to say. I completely agree with you about the Labour Party, and none of which I say is biased in any way. Farage will say... and it's a point. You've both, Tory voices this morning have both said to me the kitchen sink was thrown in. Farage will say that Matt Goodwin, with 29% of the local vote, got exactly locally that he got nationally. The bigger picture here, and the criticism that Farage has highlighted, some have said sour grapes this morning, love the Tory party's view on this, sectarian voting. A non-biased organisation has talked about family voting. They believe, this is being investigated, that 12% of the people in Gorton and Denton were led by senior family members into the booth and told how to vote. Whatever your politics, that has to be investigated. But on the bigger picture is sectarian voting. Explain this to me. You're an MP. How does a party that you describe as fluffy and tree-hugging, that, by the way, mentioned sod all about the environment in this campaign, half of the constituents they talked in Urdu to, right, and the other constituents they talked about working values. But how do they ally their view on transgender with their support from the Muslim community? Because I'm not sure about you, Matt, because I don't see how that works.
You're entirely right. They're fighting an election based on issues happening elsewhere in the world, not on the issues that are affecting those people in Gorton and Denton. They're putting out these videos in foreign languages, absolutely nuts. But then when it comes down to the allegations, actually any allegation like that should be investigated by the police. When we were last in office, we brought forward a load of legislation about postal votes, in fact, about family voting. These allegations have been made. The council's come back and said, nobody said anything about it at the time, Gov. Once the boxes got open and the votes started getting counting, it was raised. This thing needs investigating properly. The answers need to be had. At the same time, this is an organisation that people won't be familiar with, saying something after boxes is open, and the suggestion it wasn't said whilst it was going on. Anybody who suspects something like that happening in a polling station should be raising it with the people running that polling station and with the police immediately. It's now for the Electoral Commission and the police to look at this and make sure one way or the other it's cleared up.
Let's go back to it. Democracy is democracy, and Hannah Spencer won a majority. I think, to be fair, it struck me that the tree huggers did a campaign very much like the Liberal Democrats, lacking in any real substance, but managing to garner enough votes by grabbing hold of the things that matter. I do think sectarian voting is going to become, sadly, probably quite central in British politics and needs to be dealt with. But let's talk about reform. This is interesting. Andy in Cornwall. The by-election is actually a great result for Reform, as it will focus attention on sorting out a deal with other right-leaning parties. The tactical voting will work against them, as citizens who would never consider it will do so. Advance UK... They had a candidate called Nick Buckley who defected from Reform, has an MBE and has a great presence in the community. At 154 votes, Advance got less than the monster raving loony party. Surely the one thing that's come out of this from Reform's point of view, he's not going to like this, they are now the official opposition to the Labour government, aren't they, Matt Vickers? Come on.
Well, they just aren't. To be quite interesting, it was Mr. Oink Oink, wasn't it, from the...
No, don't be rude. Sir Oink-a-lot.
He was...
With his piggy
Sir
nose.
Oink-a-lot.
Yeah.
He might have been a very effective candidate. He might have actually been, listening to what the people of Gorton and Denton want rather than talking about the politics of elsewhere in the world. I don't think that's right at all, Jez. A Reform of the official opposite. Well, they clearly aren't.
Well, they got 29% of the vote. You got 2%.
They reckon they could win. As we've said, the by-elections, people rally behind the people who they think they can win in that particular seat. As we've said, Chesham and Amersham, a few years before Labour got a whopping majority in Parliament, they got their backsides handed to them on a much greater scale than we did here. They fell from 13% of the vote to less than 2%. That's what happens in a by-election. People at home know it. They've seen by-election after by-election. This wasn't a great night for reform. They reckoned they could win it. It hasn't happened. The Greens have gone in there.
Who's had the worst night? Who's had the worst night in the Tory party's view? Nigel Farage or Keir Starmer?
I think Keir Starmer's had the worst possible night. This is evidence that this cannot carry on any longer. This is Labour heartlands. This is a seat they've held, you said it, nearly a century. Dominated that seat. They've gone in there and been absolutely battered. And they've been battered because the people who voted for them last time down have been utterly let down by them. They are destroying the lives of people across this country who are being put out of work. They're suffering as a result of decisions made by Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer.
You're a great man. We'll see you Monday morning, bright and breezy. For the paper review, Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party. This just in, Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander has responded to Labour's significant defeat in the Gorton and Denton by-election by saying, "There's no doubt that last night was a difficult and deeply disappointing night for my party, the Labour Party." Well, that told us a lot, didn't it? Morning, Dan.
Morning, Jeremy. It's Dan from Kent. If you take this by-election as a test case for what could happen in the next general election, then I'm extremely worried the direction of travel this country is going. We seriously could be looking at a Labour-Green coalition if the right don't get their act together. And Ben Habib, I really like you as a man, but you've had your fun. Now, we need to unite behind reform, because there's no other way we're going to stop this mad journey the country's going.
I'm going to say something independent of talk. I don't think Reform need any other right-wing party. I don't think they need Advance. What's that other party called? Restore? I don't think they need that. Sorry, just completely honest. The vote for Reform locally was exactly the vote they got nationally. There's a bigger issue here, and it's what will happen with Labour. Will Starmer go? Will they lurch to the left? Will, this is interesting, there be a coalition with the Greens who freely... I mean, we had a bloke on at 6 o'clock who voted Green, who was an ex-Labour supporter, and I want to put to my next guest, in fact, let's say a very good morning, Carl Turner, my only favourite Labour MP for Hull East. Carl, good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy.
Good lad. There was a bloke on at 6 o'clock who said, and I quote, The Labour Party is not left-wing for me. It doesn't care about the working community. That's why I've given my vote to the Greens at the moment, Carl.
Yeah, well, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. People are disappointed with the Labour government. We've had 18 months of shenanigans. We've done some good stuff, but we can't get it in the media because we're all talking about the stuff that we've had to U-turn on. I mean, we're U-turning every 15 minutes. It's driving me mad. I can't remember what policy is at the minute, for crying out loud.
And you're a Labour MP. That's not great, is it?
Well, exactly that, you know. What a mess we've made of this stuff. Look, the reality is we lost that by-election yesterday, and I'm sorry for the candidate. I really am. I'm sorry for the activists, the people who knock on doors, volunteers, up and down the streets of that part of Manchester for free. They don't get 92 grand a year like MPs do. They do it because they want the Labour Party to win. I'm sorry for them. But the truth is this. Keir Starmer is a pal of mine, you know that. Blocked Andy Burnham. If Andy Burnham had been the candidate in that election, I think it's fair to say, the pollsters say this as well, Andy Burnham would have won that seat for the Labour Party yesterday. That's the truth.
You know, I've got so much I want to say to you, and I repeat always when you come on, I respect you enormously. There's so much I want to take out and put to you. Labour was hammered, and I mean hammered, in, what was it, a heartland seat for 100 years. The vote went from 50% to less than 25%. Half of the people went. Now, we can talk about the Greens in a minute, and I want your response, but the fact of the matter is, how do you see Labour responding to this, Carl? Will you? I know he's your friend. Isn't it time to ditch Starmer? Are we not looking at a government who will now absolutely lurch to the left?
Well, the problem we've got is this. Where do we go? I don't fancy being the PM. In fact, I wouldn't even nominate me to be the PM. That's the truth. I mean, we look around the Labour Party PLP. Where's the next leader? You've got Wes Streeting, who's wanted to be the Prime Minister since he was born, very probably. He's got a problem because he's associated with Mandelson. I think that's unfair, actually, but I think that is what the members of the Labour Party would think right now. Associations with Mandelson would put them off. That's just the truth. We've got all sorts of other candidates who we'd quite fancy. The reality is, Keir Starmer's the leader of the Labour Party. He is the Prime Minister. He stays as long as he wants to do. That's my view. But we have to change course. We have to stop relying on bad advice from these big, clever people with 23 PhDs, brains the size of planets, and we have to do policy. People might even fancy it. You know, if we tried a bit of Labour policy, it might even catch on. But I'll tell you what it would be, Jeremy, honest. The Greens went out with an honest mandate. This is what they think. This is what you're voting for. That's honesty. Crack on. If you don't want to vote for me, fine. Reform did the same. We can't outright win.
Sorry, I'm going to have to jump. I'm going to have to jump in, right? Sorry. Did you just say the Greens went out with an idea of what they were going to do?
I think that's fair. I think Anna, the candidate, was going out and saying, "Look, this is what I plan to do. This is what I'm about. This is who I am."
I just want to keep it. I just want to keep it on Labour at the moment because I have a lot to say about the Greens. Can I ask you a question? Do you believe your party will lurch to the left, and also can you see a situation where, looking at that view, looking at where the Greens have come from, that Labour and the Greens get into bed together to stop the right?
Oh, we'll lurch to the left to a degree, I think, because people in the PLP expect us to be Labour. But I don't think we can start going around saying you can legalise all sorts of substances and, you know, as the Greens can do, because you can't possibly carry on like that if you're a governing party. It puts too many off in the middle ground. That's the truth. We can't outright wing reform on immigration, and we can't out left wing the Greens on other policy areas. That's the problem the Labour Party's got. But if we're honest about what we believe in, if we stick to manifesto commitments, if we deliver for the country, we might win in 3 years. Who knows? If we don't, we get booted out.
Going to take a call, don't go anywhere. I know you're going to agree to do a regular slot. We love you. Don't go anywhere, Carl Turner. Laura Jane, good morning. 1 minute only. We're busy. What you got?
I know you're busy. I'm just very worried about this result, mainly because, as you have said over and over again, the Greens appealed to the Muslim vote. But more importantly, they did not understand what they were, that Zach Polanski represents. And that is the worrying thing going forward. We as Reform, well, in my case, I'm a Reform voter, but any of the other political parties, we have to look at how our voting and how our campaigning is going to go forwards, because this is a serious worry for our country. And anyone out there who says they're not going to vote, we have to vote. It's our duty.
Couldn't agree more. Laura Jane, thank you. Back to Carl. Carl, let's talk Greens. You're an honest man, and if I was in your... I'd probably vote for you if I was in your constituency, because you're what I call a proper MP, but I'm going to take issue with you. They stood up and talked about some serious policies. No, let's be honest. They want to legalise heroin. They think you can walk... This is genuinely important. They think you can walk to Russia and say to Putin, just put down your weapons, mister. But you're laughing, but this is true. They don't know what a bloody woman was, and I want your response. That constituency was split between a heavily Muslim community in one part and white working class. They ran a promotional video in Urdu, OK, Urdu, which for many people is unbelievable. They didn't run that video the other side. But here's the important thing. How on earth does the party that has a view, the Green Party, about the trans community, how does it manage then to sort of morph into pro-Muslim on the other side? I don't think they've a goddamn policy in their heads. I think it's populism. I think it shows the Labour Party up for weakness, and they snuck up on the inside while the other three parties bitched about each other. That's what I think.
I think the problem is, I think I've sort of I've intimated at that by saying we can't out left wing them on certain policy areas. But you're dead right. I mean, they can come up with policies that the Labour Party couldn't possibly agree with and commit to in a manifesto. Why? Because we've got to win the middle of the country. We've got to win Middle England. We've got to win people who have not really decided one way or the other. And policies like that are too extreme for the vast majority. That's just the truth.
And can I jump in for a reason? Because this is a really interesting point for me, and I'll love this. You've just said it. You've got the Greens who, they might have appealed to certain left voters, but some of their most outrageous things are barking mad. You have the same on the right. The people who say that reform are far right are fundamentally wrong. To me, reform, and I'm being completely straight, are appealing to Tory voters who believe the Tories went to the left. There's far further right parties, I'm not even going to give them credit, but we know there are, who would like blanket immigration, blah, blah, blah. That's how reform should position itself. And actually the Labour Party should be calling out the Green Party as a party that is, I'm sorry, Carl, they might have some, but a lot of it is wacky rubbish, man. That's what I would be doing if I was the Labour Party, and that's what I would be doing if I was reform.
I think on the ground we were calling out the Greens, we were calling out reform, we were trying to stick to what we believe in and what we're committed to in terms of manifesto and policies that are current. But the reality is, it's very difficult because the Greens are in a position, reform as well to a lesser extent, I suspect, but Greens are in a position where they can say one thing to a part of a community, the young voters, the Muslim community, and a very different thing to a different part of the community because they're not an incumbent, they're not expecting to be in government. If they are, they're expecting a coalition arrangement with somebody, probably the Labour Party. I hope we can win without them, but that's
would you
where
agree
they're going.
to having them with you if it kept reform out of government as a Labour MP?
Well, I'd try and keep a Labour government in, Jeremy. I've been a member since I was 13. I believe in the Labour Party. I'm a socialist, actually. That's the truth. But the fact is, we're not there yet. We need to be concentrating on what we said we'd do in the manifesto. Stick to that. Stop marching us up hills and back down again. Stick to what we've said we're going to do, for crying out loud. And don't block the best candidate for that seat for Labour. Andy Burnham, I think, would have won. We can't say that for sure, but I think he would have won and would have had a Labour MP now and not a Green MP. I tell you what, it's a catastrophe for the Labour Party because the Greens have now got a foothold in Manchester. That's a problem for us. It really is.
Let's go to Brian very quickly. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, Jezza. A couple of points on last night's by-election. I mean, firstly, 52% of the electorate couldn't be bothered to get off their backsides and go to vote. Absolutely ridiculous. I hope these people don't moan about the state of the country for the next 3 or 5 years because they're helping cause it.
He's right there, isn't he, Carl? The job for all political parties is to try and get over this apathy. I mean, it was a bigger turnout than the general election, but only 47%. The total number of votes cast, 36,000 in a constituency of over 74,000. That's a very important point there, isn't there?
It's a really important point. Look, my constituency, Hull East, was the worst turnout in the entire country, not for the last election, but for about the last 3 elections. So it's a real problem turnout. And we all have to work harder at that. We need to possibly consider the electoral system. It might be that we need an alternative vote system.
Hold on. I've heard this this morning. No, but is that Isabel Oakeshott posed the question? We haven't got long. Are Labour, out of total fear of the Greens, going to try and pump through proportional representation to save their own backsides?
Well, I doubt it, because the Labour Party have always won when we have won. We don't get the chance very often, but when we have won, we've won on the first past the post stuff, right? So I don't think we'll be changing it. I mean, it wants to be considered because people say the vote doesn't count. You either vote for the party that you're not so sure about, you pinch your nose, you put the cross in, you're not really committed. But some people might want to vote for me because they think I'm a nice kid, but then vote for Reform as a second choice. Or the other way around, vote Reform and then Turner can have me vote because I think he's all right. He's a local guy. He grafts hard. I don't mind the kid. That's the type of thing that people say to you on the doorstep. I'm not advocating it, by the way. We win by first past the post. I want Labour governments. But actually, people do say the votes are very often wasted.
Can I salute you? I know I always do it. Ladies and gentlemen, you should actually know that Carl Turner, Labour MP for Hull East, who only won because it was an incredibly low turnout, he's agreed to a regular slot on the Talk Breakfast Show starting this week. And Carl, I mean this, mate, respect to you, because you're one of those rare breeds, certainly on the left, that sticks their head above the parapet and faces stuff straight on. And we consider it a real pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much indeed.
Thanks, Jerry.
Cheers, pal. Have a good day. Carl Niall Turner there, the Labour Party. Everybody responding to this news this morning that Hannah Spencer becomes the new Green MP for Gorton and Denton. Labour pushed into third in a heartland seat. Ramifications for Starmer on the way. Reform second, 29% locally, exactly the same as they are polling nationally. Loads of opinions, loads of thoughts, your calls, and Sarah Poachin from Reform next after the news. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson.
We've now had another resignation from number 10. The plot is sickening, the noose is tightening.
His failings are internal. He's useless, incompetent, has no political judgment.
This is all part of Starmer's reset, getting rid of his inner circle. So Chris Wormold, we think fairly reluctantly, has stepped down.
What an absolutely crazy week for Keir Starmer. His second cabinet secretary, gone. His third chief of staff, gone. His fourth director of communications, gone.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, welcome along. This is Talk Breakfast. It's the home of common sense and, of course, the home of alarm clock Brits. There's only one story in town. You're waking up on Friday, the 27th of February, to the news that Hannah Spencer, the Green candidate, is the new MP for Gorton and Denton. A historic win for her and several takes from a result that has shaken the political foundations. Let me say to this, right? The Labour Party hammered in a heartland. That is a fact. This is the seat that the Labour Party has held for 100 years. Already this morning, Rachel Mansell, Carl Turner there for Labour on, saying this poses great questions about Keir Starmer's leadership. Many people in Manchester saying that if Andy Burnham, the very popular Labour mayor, well, sort of, had been allowed to stand, the result would have been very different. Let's point out democracy is democracy. Hannah Spencer and the Greens fought an incredibly good campaign, and whilst everybody else bitched and moaned, they snuck up. We'll talk about their campaign in a tick. Let's talk about reform. Many people on saying, come on, it's you know, you said you were going to win it and you haven't. Nigel Farage has already come out and talked about sectarian voting and family voting, basically cheating. And I have to say there's been proof already that 12% of the votes cast were by family voting methods, which means that illegally people were led into the opinion polls and told by their parents how to vote. Well, we'll look into that. But let's make this point about reform this morning. They received 10,578 votes, which was 29% of the voters that turned out. That 29%, if replicated nationally, would have Nigel Farage in number 10. They polled locally as they did nationally. Let's talk about the Tories. 2%. Charlotte Cadden, their candidate, was on this show earlier. They lost their deposit. The word on the street is from the Tories that, you know, Kemi Badenoch is getting through. She might well do at Prime Minister's Question Time, but not on the doorsteps of Gorton and Denton. Let's just look a little bit more deeply at the Green victory. Whilst not knocking the fact that democracy has worked, this is a party and a candidate that ran an election campaign based on one issue to one part of the constituency. They ran an Urdu, they ran their campaign video in Urdu to appeal to the Muslim vote, and they succeeded in securing that Muslim vote. To the white working classes on the other side of the constituency, they talked about how the billionaires had taken over and this was about working people. This is Hannah Spencer's, well, I would say victory moment. Have a listen, have a watch.
I didn't grow up wanting to be a politician. I'm a plumber. And 2 weeks ago, during all this, I also qualified as a plasterer. Because even in chaos, even under pressure, I get things done. I lived in this constituency at one of the most difficult and challenging periods of my life. I saw how strong the community was at holding things together. But I saw how much harder life is when the things around you are broken. The litter, the fly tipping, the dirty air. And when I moved, it became even clearer, and this is why I am fighting, for the community that I lived in and that I still work in. To our Muslim communities who this week suffered an attempted attack during Ramadan, whilst I was being welcomed by women at a mosque in Longsight, someone just down the road walked into a mosque carrying an axe. And whilst we were gathered and eating together, an act of terror could easily have taken place. And I can't and won't accept this victory tonight without calling out the politicians and divisive figures who constantly scapegoat and blame our communities for all the problems in society. My Muslim friends and neighbours are just like me, human. We ran a hopeful campaign backed by thousands of volunteers and activists. We defeated the parties of billionaire donors.
There you have it. Democracy is democracy, but let's strip this down. I have a problem with this, right? Not only does this party, in its own words, advocate the legalisation of Class A heroin and how many lives has that blighted and ruined across the world, this is a party that thinks that, naively, if Zach Polanski arrived in number 10, he would simply go to Russia and tell Vladimir Putin, put down your weapons. He believes that a woman can have a penis. Now, it's all well and good to appeal to the Muslim vote with your Urdu-inspired campaign video. But here's a question for the Greens, and I'll be putting this, right, to Jenny Jones. She's a Green Party peer later. Maybe you'd like to throw a question at her. How does the Green Party, which doesn't seem to stand for the environment anymore, only Gaza, how does the Green Party's view on transgender, how is that accepted by the Muslim community? Those are fundamentally different propositions. I don't get it. But what it does say is where we're at in British politics. We are at a seminal moment where sectarian voting is going to happen. And for that, Nigel Farage is absolutely right. Good morning to Steve in Manchester.
Morning, Jezza. Steve from Manchester. On my way to work on an absolutely miserable day. Yeah, this outcome in Gorton and Denton, a bit disappointing, but, you know, it's, like you say, it's probably sectarian voting that's caused it. The problem is in this country is with the British people, the indigenous people, we've been so disillusioned with consecutive governments for the last 20 years that we just got fed up with the voting system, and it's like, let them do what they're going to do, like, I'm not bothered anymore.
I find that most worrying, but Steve has a point, as do many people who are contacting the show. Please keep those voice notes coming. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Let's get a view from a senior Reform politician, the First Lady of Reform, the MP for Runcorn and Helsby, Sarah Poaching. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. Well, it's a bit of a sobering morning this morning, isn't it, for us all?
It's sobering, yes. Maybe I have a different opinion. What's Reform's response? We have heard a tweet from Nigel Farage saying this election was a victory for sectarian voting and cheating. Matt Goodwin was a great candidate. Roll on the elections in May. It will be goodbye Starmer and goodbye to the Tory party. I won't lie to you, Sarah. Some people are saying that's not the right response. You know, he should just accept it. And I've said all morning, I'm sure he is. Democracy is democracy. But there are examples of sectarian voting and family voting in the constituency. Let's talk, though, about this party that won. They want to legalise heroin.
I know. Look, I was, as you know, a magistrate for 20 years. I've spent so many times looking and dealing with people whose lives have been utterly ruined by drugs. So, you know, that is one policy that literally beggars belief. It absolutely will ruin people's lives. I feel so overcome this morning that with a slight element of fear for what potentially can be happening to our country. And how ironic, Jeremy, that this candidate, this Green candidate, Hannah, a woman, has gone after the Muslim vote and a section of society which has no interest in the rights of women. And we've talked a lot this morning. I've listened to you talking about this issue of family voting. But what that is all about is not allowing women their opinion. It's not putting the safety of women first. Look how this, not all of them, but look how this section of society treat women in this country. Look how they cover them up with the burqa. You know, you name it. This section of society is not pro-women. And yet there we are. We have a Green female candidate who has gone after the Muslim vote unashamedly. Those videos going out in Urdu, I criticised that online, and then Zach Polanski thought he was really funny by them translating it into another dialect, Muslim dialect, and putting that out. I can't remember which dialect it was called, but absolutely slapping in the face of British values, British people, British traditions, and I feel genuinely concerned this morning about what's happening in this country, and not only that. You know, the people that vote Green are either students, generally middle-class students who basically they shipped in yesterday. It swarmed the constituency. These students don't know what they're talking about when it comes to running the country.
I think I need to give you a bit of a pep talk this morning, Pochin. I think I need to give you a bit of a pep talk. Now, let me just put it like this, right? Let's strip this down. Let's put the Greens to one side for a minute. This was a Labour heartland, a seat controlled by Labour for 100 years. They're finished. Keir Starmer is finished. Let's talk about the Tories. They got 2% of the vote and lost their deposit. The first time they've ever lost a deposit in any election in the history of the world. They could now be described as extinct. And although you say this worries me, the fear of mine is that when you say that and people go, oh, it's a nightmare, we're not going to vote. No. Actually, the Reform vote locally, and I'm telling you this as an MP, was exactly the same as the Reform vote nationally. This was one of those by-election results where a bunch of nut jobs genuinely used every tactic in the book, democracy to democracy and fair play. She has achieved it. This won't be replicated at the general election. If I was anything to do with Reform this morning, I would be standing on the front foot saying this is a sign of what could happen if you don't come out, you don't vote and you don't put your country first. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, listen, I was the last Reform by-election winner, and because it was so close for me, a very different dynamic in my seat. We didn't have the Muslim vote, we didn't have the Green Party. It was a straight run between Labour and Reform. And you're absolutely right. In these red wall seats, the Conservatives are utterly finished. Yep. They betrayed this red wall, and they'll never get their vote back. It was a run for me between, as I say, Labour and Reform. But Reform, you're right. I mean, I feel for Matt Goodwin. I feel so sorry for him because he put everything into that election. And again, as I say, so as someone who fought a by-election, I know how tired he'll be, how exhausted he'll be, how frustrated he'll be that.
But it's democracy, right? It's democracy.
But it's democracy. But you're right. On a national level, if this had been a general election, then Nigel Farage would be going into number 10.
Do you see on a national level the Greens now as a genuine threat to Reform, or do you? I mean, I believe that the Labour Party will now lurch to the left to basically, absolutely and categorically hoover up those... I mean, we had a guy at 6 o'clock. I mean, I never thought I'd see a Green supporter on talk, but there he was in all his glory. He was fantastic, and he said, they've got my vote at the moment. I think the Labour Party's answer to this will be to lurch to the left. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, Starmer's going to go, isn't he, on May the 7th?
Yep,
we know that. Yeah, May the 8th, that's right. And we will undoubtedly get a more left, PM to the left, whether that's Angela Rayner, or God help us if it's Ed Miliband, but whoever it's going to be, yes, they will now lean into the left. I think where the Muslim vote is strong, then yes, Greens will be a problem, unashamedly a problem. And like I say, head in hands for these people that are voting Green. There's no mention of trees anymore. You're absolutely
There's no mention of trees. It's Gaza. Women have a penis, and I'm sorry. I just don't think. Maybe I have a faith in the British people. I know it was a 47% turnout, and it was a high-profile election, and why wouldn't there be more? But I honestly believe that days like today, if you step back from the precipice of, oh my God, what does this say? It actually should say to people, this, sectarian voting, is relevant. And unless we all use our brains and work out the best way to deal with this, there will be a disaster looming. But I don't see it like that. I think, listen, Hannah Spencer won the election. Fair play to her. I will always believe in democracy. I believe it's what you learn from that going forward. And I do genuinely think that the British people will go, right, so you've mobilised a certain vote by doing certain things, so you're trying to be all things to all people. I do think that the Labour Party concentrate... I mean, every time I watch the Labour Party, they basically slag off Reform. Every time I see the Tory Party, they slag off Reform. The Greens managed to miss us. Somebody once told me, and I think this is a great bit of advice, right? The view from the cheap seats is a lot easier. And when you're in the seat, and you know this, mate, it's a whole different ball game. Welcome to Westminster, Hannah Spencer. I'm just being, I'm being honest.
No, yeah, I absolutely couldn't agree with you. Our political system has been fractured. What an incredibly historic time we're witnessing, if you like, in British politics. The Conservatives, and I've been saying this for a while, look, they didn't feature in Runcorn and Helsby, they haven't featured here, and to lose their deposit is quite staggering, even in, admittedly, a seat which they were never, ever going to do particularly well in, but losing a deposit is quite staggering.
700 votes. And also I want to talk about, from a reform point of view, this is sort of generally my opinion. I'd love your take on it. There's been a lot of noise recently about other right-wing parties. Reform's taken a good number of years to get to where they are. Let's just read this out for people who wanted to know. Advance UK fielded a candidate, Nick Buckley, who used to be in Reform and made a big noise. He got less votes, ladies and gentlemen, than Sir Oinkalot, the monster raving loony party. Sarah Pochin, if last night's result proves one thing, it is surely that Reform is now the official opposition in the United Kingdom to the government, aren't they?
100%, and Reform is the only party that is representing what you and I call alarm clock Britain, the workers out there, the people that get up, go to work, pay their taxes, and just want common sense restored. And coming back to the Greens, yes, they won. Congratulations to Hannah, but that is not common sense politics, and that is not politics, a manifesto that you can run this great country on. We can't legalize drugs, legalize prostitution.
Well, listen to this.
Open our borders.
Listen to this, Angela. Could somebody ask the bloody Greens how many families have been ruined by drugs? How many young people are taking drugs? How many people have died from drugs? Steve in Essex. I wonder if the Green Urdu video gave different policies to that which they were spouting on the other side of the constituency. Chris Hudson. This election result will serve as a wake-up call for the British indigenous population, and the government must tighten up the criteria for eligibility to vote. If you are not a British citizen, you can't speak the lingo, then you have no right to say who governs this country. Charles Kemp, I want you to hear these, Sarah, it's important. This by-election's become a farce, with the winning party getting through with a foreign-based campaign video and a heroin legislation ticket. Margaret's in Birmingham. Tell Sarah this election is a wake-up call and a red flag to all political parties if nut jobs are voted in. This is a party, she said, who want open borders, they want to legalise heroin, and they think a woman can have a penis. I think that's the point here. I think we all need to just go, whoa, this is one of those results. It's fine. You take it on the chin. It's democracy. It's where it goes from here. For example, Sarah, how long does Starmer have?
Starmer will be kept in place until, as you said, May the 8th. In effect, he'll go straight away. The local elections will wipe the floor. We will wipe the floor with Labour. But when you going back to the Muslim vote, we cannot underestimate this situation in this country. We need to address this situation in this country. We cannot have election material, whether it's videos or leaflets or whatever it is, going out in another language. If you cannot speak English, if you cannot, understand and integrate into this society, what right do you have to vote? And I know those are strong words, but I truly believe that. I find that chilling, spine chilling, when I see those videos by the Green Party, meant to be nice, gentle little tree huggers, and they've turned into
not a mention of a tree, not a mention of a river.
Very frightening party with a very frightening manifesto.
This is the latest headline news coming out. Starmer on the brink. We've just had this as hard left Greens smash Labour in by-election, with Reform pushing them into third. I'm interested as to whether you think Starmer will start attacking the Greens, because that guy this morning at 6 o'clock said, they've got my vote for now because they're not left-wing enough. I absolutely... there's another piece of it. I'm not giving you advice, for God's sake. You're a legend. But I think in times like this, you keep doing what you do. You keep your mindset on what you believe in, and you keep saying the message. I think now is the time for a steady hand on the tiller.
I think you're right. Look, we ran a fantastic campaign. We got a huge portion of the votes, and that can't be dismissed. We're a very, very strong party now. And going back to your comments about the smaller parties like Advance, you know what? Nigel has spent years and years not changing his direction, not changing his core policies.
Very consistent.
And building up this party. the party of opposition. But yeah, this is a very unsettling morning. I think when I just can't believe that people would vote for such a lunatic party.
Yeah, but we know why. And do you feel that after 15 minutes on the couch with Dr. Karl, do you feel galvanised to get on with your day, Sarah Pochin?
I'm not sure. I feel.
Oh.
You're absolutely right. We've got to carry on.
You're tired and emotional. Go back to that lovely flat and get one of those many bottles of wine you've got on the top and throw one down your neck. God bless you. We love having you on. Sarah Pochin there. Sarah Vine from the Mail. She's top. She's on the show. Anne Widdicombe. Your calls, your texts. Good morning, Penny.
Morning, Jezza. Good show as usual. Penny from the Forest in Southampton here. Just a quick one. So that Hannah the plumber lass, she keeps going on about, oh, you know, the potential attack on the Muslims while they were having Ramadan, all this malarkey. What about the poor Jews that are attacked by Muslims? Does she not think about those people? No, because all she cares about was the Muslim vote. And that's it. And that is probably what got the sway.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCown.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beard, and I feel
raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of its desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8:25. If you're a regular, it's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show on Talk. And can I just say, Rob Austin has just made the switch and says he's loving it. You'll know at this time in the morning, my son will not go into school. Oliver William Robin Kyle, who now knows himself as OWRK. He won't go into school unless his dad says, have a good day. I'll see you later, mate. I love you loads. And Rissy in the back will be going, shut up. Shut up. She's only 2. Obviously, they should be listening all about the Denton and Gorton by-election. Good morning to the wife as well. Lovely. 0344 419 1000. Your text, your voice notes, whatever. Pauline, hello.
Oh, my goodness. God help Gorton and Denton now. But, as Jeremy has just said, it's an eye-opener and people have got to go out and vote. And vote... well, I'm just lost for words.
It is an eye-opener, but it's fact and it's democracy. We'll say a very good morning, and at some point during the next 15 minutes, I expect her cat to walk in front of the camera. Sarah, I always get a bit... I was like, I can't believe she's on again. Sarah Vine, author and columnist from The Mail. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Cersei has had her breakfast, and she is lurking.
What's the name of the cat?
Cersei.
That's amazing. Honestly.
Cersei Lannister.
You're so posh. I love it. It's just, honestly, the
Game of Thrones.
No, but it's just posh. Sarah, let's get your immediate... I'm quite outspoken on this morning. What's your response to the
I have to say, I think it's a victory for sectarianism. I think that they fought a really hateful and divisive campaign, and they've won.
Yeah, I mean, democracy is democracy, but my takeouts from this are, if you are in essence, going to run a campaign. But I mean, have you seen the Urdu video? I'm going to play this because I want to play this for the people just tuning in, because people tune in and out all morning. We weren't allowed, peeps, to play this during the election because of a thing called Purdah. We have to be balanced. This was the Green Party's campaign video in Gorton and Denton. Have a listen, have a watch.
गोर्टन और डेंटन एक जुल्म सियासतदान जीत सकता है अगर हम रिफॉर्म को रोकने के लिए ग्रीन को वोट ना दें।
मेरा नाम Hannah Spencer है। मैं Green Party की उम्मीदवार हूँ।
दुकानदार।
I won't play any more, Sarah, but that's in essence the truth. Now, you would say a very divisive campaign. Interesting that she labelled Farage and everybody else as divisive. That is absolutely aiming at one part of that constituency, and democratically we would have to say it's worked. But we're hearing about family voting. I don't know if you've heard this accusation this morning, that certain members of the community were leading their young family members in and telling them how to vote. It's illegal.
Yes, I mean, that is illegal. And obviously, I think there will have to be, some kind of investigation into whether that's true or not. It may well not be true. But it's just, it was a very targeted campaign, and it was very divisive, and it was run along extremely political, not sort of sensible. It wasn't really about policies. It was about identity. Does that make sense? So, most politicians have and I've just listened to her acceptance speech, and she just talks about billionaires. There's the usual sort of far left nonsense about rich people are bad and people like that.
But more seriously, I bet you don't mind me jumping in. I mean, I'm not in any way trying to make this light-hearted. It isn't, because it's deadly serious. This is I thought the Green Party, Sarah, I haven't heard one mention about the tree or a river. No. I've heard that a woman can have a penis. Yeah. I've heard that, Gaza, and I've heard about heroin being legalised. If you strip that down, it's dangerous.
So what they've done is they've identified issues that have very fanatical followers, extreme trans ideology, all of these kind of sort of things that tend to attract very dogmatic, very, very kind of almost, I would say sectarian type of people, and they've just parroted those, and then they've got the votes. So it is, I'm afraid, sectarianism, and it's not. That is very. You and I are old enough to remember the Troubles. When people start voting because of identity, then you're in real trouble. You're in really dangerous territory, actually.
Is it a sign of things to come, do you think? Can it be stopped? Can it be changed?
I think Sarah Putin was right when she was talking about the sort of fracturing of British politics. There is definitely a sense that everything is fragmented now. So, there are the two-party political system is, I think, effectively defunct or going that way. But the slight problem is that we have a voting system that only really allows for a 2 or maximum 3-party system, because we have first past the post. We don't have proportional representation. So what that creates is really weird and anomalous results where you split votes, and then you end up, you vote for one thing and you basically get the opposite.
Do you think the Labour Party, out of panic, knowing what the Greens have achieved, Isabel Oakeshott said this earlier on, she thinks that we should be careful because the Labour Party might well try and bring in proportional representation. I don't necessarily agree. I think they'll lurch to the left. What do you make of that?
I don't think they would do that, because I don't think it would be advantageous to them. Of course, Zach Polanski does want proportional representation, like all politicians like him want proportional representation because they would benefit from it. And the thing is, you can. What is that noise?
Oh, there's a noise. The cat. What's going on?
Oh, sorry. I think it's some alarm that my child set up.
I love you being on. I love it. So normal.
So chaos. Such chaos in his house. I don't know where the cat's gone, actually. But no, I think so. So that's the problem. Yeah. Is that? So I think a lot of people at the last election voted Reform, and they effectively got a massive Labour majority because it split the right wing, the centre right vote, and that is that is not democracy. Genuinely, that is not a representative result, is it? I mean, we've got I think what is it? 32% of the vote is what this Labour Party got this massive majority with. I don't know that that's representative. I
think that my take out. So, there was one question before we move on from the Muslim. This is the bit that I've really struggled with all morning, and you're more intelligent than me. Why are the Muslim population in Gorton and Denton voting for a party with the trans ideology view that the Greens have? Because it runs completely at odds with what they believe in.
Because they don't don't care, because to them it's about just getting somebody who is their candidate in, I think. And look, people often ask, why is it that so many trans people or even gay people are so pro-Palestine, also anti-Israel, also pro those very kind of authoritarian far-right Islamist groups? Because it makes no sense, because if those people were in power, they would be in serious trouble. But it's not logical. This is the thing. This is the problem when you do identity politics like this, is that none of this is logical. It's just people being hysterical. And I mean, I don't know if you saw that video of her yesterday dancing away with lots of people. People she pressed all their buttons and she got elected.
I think my overall take, Sarah, would be that it's an eye-opener. I think Labour have been hammered. I think we both agree about that. I think the Tory vote was non-existent. They would say it's not a seat.
They were always going to do badly there.
And I think Reform probably, if anything, locally polling at exactly 29% that they did nationally, says to me that they are now officially the opposition. I actually have some breaking news. I hope you don't mind me dumping this on you. The statue of Sir Winston Churchill, we just heard in Parliament Square, has been defaced with pro-Palestinian graffiti. The words "Free Palestine" and "Zionist war criminal" were written across the statue of the former Prime Minister. I'll let you deal with that, because I'll probably go mad.
I mean, these people wouldn't have the right to do that if it weren't for Winston Churchill. So they can do one, frankly.
I could not agree more. I could not agree more.
I mean, they're just stupid. They're ignorant. This is it. It's ignorance. They don't know their history. They're just head down on Twitter or whatever it is, or wherever they're getting their information from. This is the problem. This is the problem with everything is atomized. It's not just politics. It's information, it's news, it's the truth. You can't tell one from the other anymore. And people are just, they all just do stupid things.
My daughter said to me that people at her university say that Winston Churchill's a racist, and I said to her, you wouldn't be at your bloody university. You wouldn't have the life you've had without Winston Churchill. I'll invite you on all the time. I'm looking forward to you one day saying, would you like to come on my podcast?
Would you like to come on my podcast?
Any time at all. I'd be delighted. You're my broadcasting hero, you and Chris Evans. I'm being completely serious. I love you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much indeed. Miss the Cat, 8:35, Sarah Vine from the Daily Mail. That breaking news, the statue of Winston Churchill defaced in Parliament Square. Oh, don't get me started. The words "Free Palestine" and "Zionist war criminal," you entitled, overprivileged, unintelligent idiots. You do not even know why you're here. Morning, Paula.
Morning, Jeremy. Paula in Liverpool. I noticed there was no mention in that victory speech of the Jewish community that were attacked not so long ago in Manchester. This is really worrying. Thanks, Jeremy. Great show. Paula in Liverpool.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 24 minutes to 9 o'clock. You're waking up to the news that Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense and Alarm Clock Britain, can tell you that a huge blow for Starmer this morning as the Green Party's candidate Hannah Spencer wins a historic by-election victory in Gorton and Denton. She forces Labour, who have held the seat for 100 years, into third place. They lose 25%, well, half of their vote. Reform, Matt Goodwin coming second with 10.5. The critics are saying, oh, has the Reform bubble burst? Reform are saying, and I think quite rightly, we got 29% in a seat that would have been difficult for anybody to win with the split, with the sectarian voting that we've been talking about. But our local vote stood up against our national vote, 29%. The Tories losing their deposit for the first time in any by-election, 2% of the vote. So much coming out of this. Accusations of sectarian voting, accusations of family voting. The Green peer, Jenny Jones, will be on this show ahead of 9 o'clock. What would you like to say to a Green peer about what happened overnight? 0344 499 1000. Pete, good morning.
Hiya, Jez. Pete from Lancashire. Shocking, really, innit? The Greens getting in. But I'm a Reform voter, mate. I will vote Reform in May and at a general election. But I think they need to change, you know, the rhetoric, really. We all know what they want to do with immigration and that. But as a Reform voter, it's getting boring, mate. But yeah, I think they need to change the rhetoric and, you know, start focusing on other things, because we know what they're going to do with immigration. Great show, mate. Take care.
Really interesting point we'll put to the former Home Office Minister. I love this lady as well. Anne Widdecombe, welcome to Talk Breakfast. How are you?
I'm very well indeed, and I'm really rather pleased this morning, not that the Greens won, but that I think what this vote shows quite decisively is that the old order is on its last legs.
You see, it's taken 2 hours and 38 minutes, and this woman has more experience than any of you, for somebody to... What I have been saying, Anne, since 6 o'clock. My takeouts are this, OK? Labour hammered in a heartland 100-year seat. Starmer goes, they'll lurch to the left because of what the Greens have managed to do. The Tory party, 2%, lose the deposit, extinct. Reform categorically proving they are the only legitimate opposition in any way now. Advance UK put Nick Buckley up. He used to be a Reform. He's got an MB. He got less votes than Sir Oinkalot from the monster raving loony party, Anne.
I know. I think it is very clear that, as I say, the old order is on its last legs. I mean, we've always assumed that left and right would be represented by Labour and the Conservatives. Well, you look at that, and in fact, the two parties at the top also represent right and left, but they are Reform and the Greens. They are not Labour and Conservatives. And yes, the Conservatives were never going to do anything much in this seat. I mean, I accept that. But Labour is in a depths of unpopularity. The Prime Minister is one of the most unpopular Prime Ministers ever on record. So you expect the official opposition to at least make some inroads, and they got 706 votes. I mean, it's farcical.
Let's talk about Reform, because there was a call before your part which I wanted to put to you.
Can I just put one last sentence into all of that?
Yeah.
I think future elections now, when it comes to right versus left, are going to be between Reform and the Greens.
Well, this is really interesting. So, I mean, before I talk about that, can I just... The guy came on the phone and he said, I'm a Reform voter, but the rhetoric needs to change. Several people this morning have come out and said, look, Nigel, you know, you shouldn't be moaning at democracy. I don't think he's moaning. I think he's highlighting sectarian voting, which is absolutely happening. The gentleman said they need to change the rhetoric now. We know it's all about immigration. It's boring. You need to start talking about other things. I would say that Nigel Farage has talked about other things. What would you respond to that with?
Well, I mean, he certainly has. I mean, we produced a full, we didn't call it a manifesto, we called it a contract, but we produced a full range of policies at the last general election. We're working on policies now across the range. We do talk across the range. I've heard Nigel and Zia, for that matter, talking about taxation. They don't just talk about immigration. They talk about whatever it is that is pressing at the time. So I think that's wrong. And if, that gentleman has got bored, I mean, he said it's boring, has got bored with the issue of immigration, then he has got bored with just about the most major change that this country has seen and is still seeing. And he has got bored with the fact that every single day, or almost every day, we get boatloads of people coming here illegally that we have to house under current laws, that we have to house and feed and look after. So I'm sorry he's bored with it. I'm not. I'm worried by it.
Well, I have to say, I mean, I watched, I don't know if you saw Hannah Spencer's acceptance speech, where she talked about her own personal journey, being a plumber and living and working in the constituency, and she talked about how, you know, the Muslim vote had helped her. She talked about billionaires, but she made a big thing about how normal working-class people are suffering at the hands of the NHS, suffering at the... Well, she talked about, I want clean air, I want jobs, I want people to prosper. Surely, without being accused of being everything under the sun, if you import hundreds of thousands of illegal people into your country and treat them better than your indigenous population, you are making the people's lives in Gorton and Denton worse, aren't you?
Well, certainly it's putting an enormous strain on the economy. There is no doubt about that. I don't necessarily think they're treated better than ordinary citizens, but I think they're treated better than illegality warrants. So, as you know, my policy has been for decades is universal detention. As soon as somebody claims asylum, you put them in secure accommodation, you know where they are, and you keep them there until you can deport them.
Just very quickly, we have to move on. It's a busy morning. We thank you as ever. And the statue of Sir Winston Churchill, breaking news in Parliament Square, we just reported, has been defaced with pro-Palestinian graffiti. The words "Free Palestine" and "Zionist war criminal" were written across the statue. Quickly, your response, Anne Widdecombe. Oh, Anne's gone. Brilliant. Well done. Let's go to our break. Morning, Lisa.
Morning, Jezza. It's Lisa from Canterbury. I hate to say it, but I really do not believe that anyone that's in this country who can't speak our language should be allowed to vote at all. It should be completely illegal. Terrible. This country's really going to the dogs. Thanks.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me every weekend from 6 a.m. for the stories that matter to you. We talk politics, we talk news, we talk entertainment, we talk about everything that affects your life. There's only one place to start your weekend, the home of common sense. Talk Breakfast on Talk. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Friday, Saturday and Sunday here on the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8:45. We're live across the UK. It's Talk Breakfast. Excuse me, the home of common sense and, of course, the home of Alarm Clock Britain. 0344 499 1000. Your text to 87222. You're waking up to, well, a historic moment for the Green Party. Hannah Spencer becomes the new MP for Gorton and Denton. She forced Reform into second, Labour into third in a seat that Labour has held, one of their main heartlands, for 100 years. I've said since I started doing this show, we will do our damnedest to get a view from across the political spectrum. We spoke at 6 o'clock to somebody who'd voted for the Green Party. We've spoken to Labour MP Carl Turner, who is infuriated, along with others, about Keir Starmer. We've spoken to the Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party. We've spoken to a Reform MP. Time now, and delighted to have her on. I'm really grateful. The Green Party peer, Baroness Jenny Jones. Jenny, a very good morning to you.
Morning.
You've got a smile on your face on Friday the 27th of September, February even.
A song in my heart, yes. No, it's been an incredible morning. And at work at the House of Lords, peers have been asking me all week, from different political parties, all week, what do you think the odds are? How will you do? And I've been saying, well, it's looking good. But never in my wildest dreams did I think it would be 4,000 votes ahead of Reform. I think that's absolutely brilliant. And you said something about your show being the home of common sense. Well, I think the Green Party, is the party of common sense. And I think the more MPs we get, the more we reach out, the more people will understand that.
Now, Jenny, you know the game. You're a baroness, and you know the job that I have to do. Let me start at the bit. What?
Be nasty.
No. Ask questions based... Not at all. Ask questions that I know a woman of your political experience will be able to answer. You've been part of the Green Party since it focused on green issues. Do you recognise the Green Party? Because I didn't hear anything about any green issue in Gorton or Denton at all.
Well, the whole point is that every single thing is a green issue, because if we don't get the economy right, if we don't make sure that people can actually live decent lives, then why on earth should they care about the environment? They don't have the time, the scope, the energy to think about the environment. So actually, things like the cost of living is a crucial environmental piece of policy. And I talk about the environment all the time, but I try to always link it to practical stuff so that people understand that it is not some sort of remote thing, you know, that climate collapse is going to happen in 20 years and, well, there's not much we can do about it. I keep telling people everything we do now, everything, where we spend our money, what crops we grow, how clean we keep our air so that children don't grow up with damaged lungs, everything is environmental.
But if everything's environmental, how does a campaign video in Urdu, which was setting out absolutely to garner the Muslim vote, how does talking about Gaza help the environment in Gorton and Denton?
First of all, on the Urdu, we have always done leaflets in other languages. I was quite shocked at all the fuss about this. It's really not the first time. And talking about Gaza, we've been talking about Gaza for a long time. I visited the West Bank back in the 1990s, probably 30 years ago now, and I saw then the problems that the Palestinians were facing. So Gaza has been on our agenda for quite some time. It's not new. It has become relevant. That's all.
I've read, and I know that that's true, but my point is this. I'm also concerned about Gaza. I'm a father. I don't like what I see. But we are entering a political situation, Jenny, now, where issues abroad are being used specifically, I think, to cause division. Now, a lot of Green people have said, and forget Reform a minute, sectarian voting. Hannah Spencer and the Green Party did an incredible job. They won a democratic vote. I've said it all morning. But what she did was she managed to get the Muslim vote on one side of the constituency, and the other side of the constituency she managed to get support as well. But is this, in your mind, a sign of things to come? Sectarian voting in local and general election terms?
I don't think it's sectarian. I think that, Hannah's expressed this really well in her acceptance speech. She said, you know, what we all have in common is that we're human and we all want more or less the same things. We want a decent standard of life. We want our children to grow up healthy. And so this is not sectarian. And, you know, you said forget Reform. Let's just do that. Let's forget Reform. We have taken the challenge to Reform and we've beaten them because we actually talked about hope and a better life, whereas they were talking about hate and... But
you see, Jenny, that's my issue, right? Let's get away from hate, because the first thing you said to me was you're going to be nasty. No, I'm not. The Green Party plan to hand every single illegal migrant. They plan to open the borders. They plan to give migrants a free house, a wage and an NHS care. Now, just get out of the House of Commons and the House of Lords and just talk to me normally. How do you, as a Baroness, think that a majority of people in the United Kingdom, my love, who are literally at this moment struggling to pay bills, struggling to do all the normal things, how do you think they feel when they hear that a party that wants to say, come in and we'll make your life better than the very people Hannah and you were talking about? Come on, Jenny.
My love. I grew up on a council estate in Brighton, working class family, and I still live in a council flat here in London, albeit I bought it from the tenant who bought it. But, you know, the fact is we need immigrants. We need people coming to this country to actually do a lot of the work.
Why don't we get the people who are long-term unemployed to do those jobs? Why don't we encourage them?
That is absolutely right. We should be helping people who are long-term unemployed. But this goes back again to the cost of living, to the economy. The fact is that the economy is being money is being leached out of the economy by people who are very, very wealthy, and they are not putting it back. And I keep getting asked, oh, well, what if we drive all these rich people away? Well, quite honestly, if they're not paying their taxes, if they're not supporting schools, if they're not supporting the NHS...
But my point is, Jenny, jobless...
No, you can't keep interrupting me when you've asked me a question. Just let me finish this. If those rich people don't pay for the infrastructure that help people to get jobs and decent jobs, then they're welcome to leave. We have to understand that putting money into the economy for people is what we have to do, and that's what the Green Party has been saying.
Jobless migrant households will receive £10 billion in benefits. And listen, we're having a great conversation. You didn't ask the question. How do you explain this ideological view that we should open the borders and make everybody's lives fantastic, because that looks great? How do you explain it to working class alarm clock Brits, in your own words, Jenny, who are saying, I live my life, I pay my taxes, I bring my kids up, and I feel, this is a genuine question, 28th in the queue now, not me, not this television or radio station, people out there. What do you say to them?
Say to them that if we have immigrants who actually do amazing jobs, they will pay taxes, they will build a life here, they will become doctors, nurses, carers, teachers. They will be part of our economy, they will support it, they will become part of our culture. There are parts of Britain where people are fully integrated.
That figure says that that's not true. And also, and I know exactly what you're going to say, but we have to do it for the sake of balance. You paint a picture. You sound like that Darren Jones in the Labour Party who says the boats are full of poor women and children. They are full of criminalised young men who drop their passports. You're laughing at me, but it's a fact. They're criminals, a lot of them. What do you say to that?
You're putting out the sort of scare story that Reform does. These boats are full of... I was an archaeologist. I've worked in the Middle East a lot. I know exactly what's happening. The fact is, these young men come over because the women with children can't make that sort of journey. If you go to the camps in the north of France, there are lots of women and lots of children. But to make that dangerous sea crossing is not something they want to do. The young men come here. If we allowed them to work, if we allowed them to take jobs, then they would be able to bring the...
What about the ones that commit crime and sign on £10 billion in benefits to illegal migrants? How does the Green Party answer that?
You seem to think that we don't have a fully costed manifesto, and actually we're one of the few political parties that do. Why don't you ask Reform about their manifesto? They don't.
I'm not talking about Reform, I'm talking about the Green Party. Why do you keep throwing Reform at me?
Because we've just beaten them, and it's great to say that.
Zach Palazzi told Piers Morgan, my colleague, that a woman can have a penis, Dame Jenny Jones. What's your response to that?
I would say I'm not a dame, I'm a baroness.
Oh, and God. OK, baroness,
well,
sorry.
it's different, it's two different things.
What's more important, baroness or dame? Because I think you should be the more important one, whatever it is. There you go.
Well, you're very kind, but they are just different things. As far as I'm concerned, my baroness is it's a job. It's a job title. I go to work, I work hard, and I try to, explain the Green Party to people. Well, on this, about women having a penis, I don't agree with Zach. But, we are allowed to have different views in the Green Party, and, on that we differ. I think now, having won this election, it's seismic for the Green Party. And it just shows that the talk of wasted votes, which is something we face all the time on the doorstep, is simply not true anymore.
Do you think that you have also, I mean, very quickly, and it's great to have you on, Labour hammered in a heartland. We've talked about reform, let's talk about Labour. I mean, this surely spells the end for Starmer, doesn't it? The Greens have taken that left-wing position. The first guy on this morning said, this is what he said, by the way, Jenny, he said, I used to vote for Labour, but they're not left-wing enough for me now.
I think when Zach made his acceptance speech as leader of the Green Party, he actually said, "We are going to beat Labour," and I applauded at the time. But really, he was absolutely right. We have beaten Labour and the Tories, of course. So this is a great day for the Green Party, and I think it bodes well for the local elections and for the Senedd elections in Wales.
I've only got 40 seconds. You said very honestly there that people within the Green Party disagree, and you said I disagree with Zach Polanski on a woman can have a penis. Are you happy with the legalisation of heroin? Because try answering the people who have lost family members through heroin addiction.
This again is a story that's just been taken out of context. We have consulted experts, health experts. It will be regulated. That's the whole point. Leaving heroin in the hands of criminal gangs is disastrous for communities all over Britain.
OK, so you agree with the legalisation of heroin?
I agree with our policy on it, yes.
It's a real pleasure to have you on. It is important we get all sides. I very much appreciate it. Baroness Jenny Jones, thank you for being on Talk Breakfast. What is it? I obviously come from a different planet. So, what, I haven't even got a time here. What are you doing? Am I talking up to the news? What am I doing? Oh, I'm talking up to the news. What do you make of Jenny Jones? It's really important we get both sides of the argument here. She believes in legalising heroin. She says she disagrees with Zach Polanski on a woman can have a penis. She said it's a seismic night for the Green Party. She agreed with me, and I think she's right that for Starmer, it's the beginning of the end. Let's talk to Perry. Morning, Perry.
Morning, Jez. I'm so disappointed this morning about Reform not winning that area, but you know what I would do? I mean, I don't like Keir Starmer. Do you know what I'd do if I was Keir Starmer this morning? I would be looking to rent every single house that's up for rent. I'd be looking to look at any possible bit of land where you could build a camp, and I would say, you voted for it, you can have them.
There you go. What do you make of Jenny Jones, though? 344 499 1000. Luke's in Shropshire. Jenny has just stated that migrants will work and they're all doctors and nurses. But how is that so? Her own party have had to translate their plans into Urdu. How will people work when they don't speak our language? Listen, I said it at the beginning with Jenny, and I'll say it again. And I'm sorry I got her Baroness, and I mean that honestly. Good. We have to get all sides on this show. But the truth is, when I said to her, illegal migrants, jobless illegal migrant households receive £10 billion in benefits, they don't answer the question. That is an absolute fact. Apparently there are women and children, but they're all in France. The fact of the matter is, it is not far right or unreasonable to say that a lot of the problems that we have in this country right now are down to uncontrolled migration. Let me nail my colours, right, for anybody who thinks that I don't think this. Migration has worked. Good migration has caused great things for the United Kingdom. But unless we as a country are brave enough to stand up and go, people are coming here who have no respect or desire to be part of this country. They will not learn our language. They will not work. They are coming here because we are as soft as and giving away too much. Unless we have that conversation without the left going, oh, this is unfair. I think it's unfair to imagine that a woman can have a penis and it's OK to say... I did a show where people's lives were blighted by drugs. Try telling a person who's lost their child to heroin addiction that the Green Party is correct. But it's a debate, and that's what this is about. 0344 499 1000. The news at 9 is next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Right, welcome back. Just gone 9 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. 3 hours of heavy-paced radio and TV based entirely on the one major story in the newspapers and online and in the news today. A huge blow for Keir Starmer as the Greens, under Hannah Spencer, a resurgent Green Party, wins the Gorton and Denton by-election last night with a majority of 4,400 and something. Over Reform, who comes second, Matt Goodwin. Labour pushed into third. The take from this is as follows. Labour... This was a Labour heartland. You can't even express how much of a heartland this was for Labour. 100 years they've held the seat, pushed into third. What does it say about Starmer? What does it say about the Labour approach? Do you, like me and many others, think they will now tack to the left and attack the Greens? Because their policy so far, under Starmer, seems to have been attack reform. The Tories, inconsequent, nothing. 2% of the vote lose their deposit. Many people saying that Kemi Badenoch's views and approach have done wonders, and I think that would be fair, but it's obviously not transferring to the doorsteps. Reform. Is it a good result? Is it a bad result? The critics say it's a bloody nose. They said they could win it. Other people, myself included, are saying that Matt Goodwin received 29% of the local vote in Gorton and Denton, which is exactly what that party has been polling at nationally. To me, personally, it's an eye-opener. There have been accusations of sectarian voting, family voting, which is illegal. That'll be looked into. Dirty tricks and underhand tactics on all sides. But what it does tell everybody, whatever your political persuasion, is that wherever your political loyalties lie, as only 47% of people turned out again in this constituency, people need to get off their backsides and go and vote. We live in a democracy. Hannah Spencer is duly elected, and that's a democracy. If you disagree with that and you live in Gorton and Denton, you should have got out and done something about it. The same across the United Kingdom. This is the bit of the show where we're going to go back to Gorton and Denton to Samara, and then I want to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. Voice notes or calls coming up. Back to Samara. Is it now light? Has the rain stopped? Are you indoors? What's happening?
Oh, it's all a bit hectic over here, but I can tell you so much so that, you know, Manchester is waking up. The constituency of Gorton and Denton is waking up to this new future for them, which is being led by the Green Party. I've been talking to people for the last couple of hours while I've been off air and just sort of trying to gauge what it's like on the ground here. Ultimately, pretty much everyone I speak to is very happy about the Greens' win. As you very rightly said, JK, we're in Labour heartland, and unfortunately, Labour focused on attacking reform so much that they sort of forgot about what was going on behind them and basically got stabbed in the back by Zach Polanski and his motley crew of politicians. So it's very interesting. I mean, half the people I've spoke to don't even know or didn't even know that there was an election going on, as you said. Some people are just not aware of it. The other half are, you know, very politically aware and very happy about the Greens. I spoke to a Deliveroo driver who said that he thinks reform is bad because they were going to deport him. So you can actually see that the tactics of the Greens have really punctured through here, and there's a big wave that has landed on the shores of Gorton and Denton, and it seems like it's here to stay.
It's really
a green one, not a blue one, unfortunately, for them.
It's really interesting, though, because democracy is democracy, sir, and I said it all morning, that's the way it works. And we've had the discussion about the Urdu video, and the Muslim community is as much right as every other to have an opinion. What I can't, and I put it to Baroness Jenny Jones, I mean, a Green peer, I said to her, a woman can't have a penis. You are advocating the legalisation of drugs. What I see today about is, yeah, fine, that's been voted, and I accept that. It's an eye-opener, though. There is undoubted sectarian voting, We've got people who will say reform are about division and hate. We've got people on the right saying the Greens are a bunch of nut jobs who, you know, would walk across to Russia and go, oh, Mr Putin, please give up your weapons, you lovely man, and let's have a, I don't know, some dinner, sat cross-legged chanting or something. The world, this country is like that. And for me, right now, more than anything from today, it's about people looking at this and not shying away from saying what they feel and got to cast your vote, Samara, haven't you? Got to cast your vote.
It's a really, really good point. And you make a good point about this fracture, even just within the Greens party. You've got Zach Polanski as the leader, who's extremely liberal, so liberal that he wants to legalise every drug under the sun, you know, full rights for transgender people, giving free houses to illegal migrants. This is the man that he is. But then you've got his deputy, Mothin Ali, whose wife wears a full niqab or burqa, full face covering, and that is the inimitable duo that we've been left with the Green Party. And I don't see the longevity of that, because there's got to be fractures. I mean, even spending time with people like Shahid Butt in Birmingham, who had who was running as an independent, they said they left your party because of the trans policies. So this weird marriage between you know, liberalism and a sort of jihadi twinge is something that really needs to be looked into. And for now, yes, it's working because it's mobilising voter blocks, but who knows?
Listen, amazing work this morning. I guess Hannah Spencer, she had a vegan... Yes, have you had any breakfast? You can't eat meat now, can you there? It's all a bit dodgy and left-wing. But listen... Be brilliant having you on. Thank you.
It's been banned over here.
Yeah. Fantastic having you on. Thank you very much indeed. I want to hear from you all. What's your response to this news? Thank you, Samara. Let's go to Gloucester. Only a minute, David. You're on Talk Breakfast. Good morning.
Well, very quickly, Jeremy, I will just say I think this could be the wake-up call. It's actually surprising. I think this is a result that really could wake the country up and realise that if you don't do anything, these are the nut jobs that are going to be running the country. So maybe this is the wake-up call that the country actually needs, and it could actually be the best thing that ever happened.
David in Gloucester, you're a man after my own heart. I can't be doing with the people that say, oh, my God, the Greens have won, this is the end of the world. It's an eye-opener. Let's go to Adrian. Morning, Adrian.
Morning, Jeremy. This is Adrian from the Isle of Wight, and I woke up this morning to see the result of the by-election. What occurs to me, of course, is that everything was in Urdu or other languages, and I wonder whether the winner of the by-election will go into Parliament and swear allegiance to the King over the Quran in Urdu.
That's an interesting point. Adrian, of course, has got another problem. He woke up this morning in the Isle of Wight, which will probably be given away by the Labour Party at the end of the week. So that's the next thing for him to have to say. Let's go to Herbie. Brilliant. In Harrow. Herbie, good morning. Welcome to breakfast. 1 minute, go.
Good morning, Jeremy. Yes, well, the family voting is only a tip of the iceberg. The worst one is the postal voting, because we do not know who's putting the name on that piece of paper and who's putting the cross there.
I agree. Now, Nigel Farage tweeted earlier this election was a victory for sectarian voting and cheating. A lot of people are shouting sour grapes, but Nigel is absolutely right. Undoubtedly, there's sectarian voting, and there has been proven by an independent commission that 12% of the votes cast were what's called family voting, which is you drag your teenage kid, well, you know, beyond 18 in and point, and that's illegal and completely wrong and will no doubt be looked into. But Herbie, do you, like me, see this as an eye-opener this morning more than anything else?
Oh, absolutely. Wake up, people, because this is what's going to happen. You know, other parties are going to take over and we will be losing every time, because now the change is completely gone. We've now got to face the reality. We're ready for disaster, Jeremy, I'm afraid.
My friend, thank you so much. Have you got a voice note? Yeah? No? You're doing one? Let's take Mike in Southampton. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy.
1 minute. What you got, kiddo?
I think it's brilliant news, because now we know where to send all the illegal immigrants before we deport them. And I think it's going to help Nigel in the general election. It's a shame for Matt Goodwin, because he's a great bloke. But... it's got to be good news, I think. It's going to help reform in the long term.
You see it as an eye-opener, my friend, yes?
Definitely.
Final call this segment. Let's go to Liverpool. Dan, you're on Talk Breakfast. Good morning.
Hello, Jeremy. I'm out of sympathy. I don't want to hear one story of any child or woman. I do not care. You voted for it. If anything happens to anyone's family, I want them to remember you voted for this.
Thoughts? Listen, everybody's thoughts are important to them. We appreciate your calls. We'll keep them coming between now and 10. 0344 499 1000. You text to 87222. Coming next is a friend of mine, I know, but he's the chairman of Reform UK. He's been on the media around this morning. He's more knackered than I am. Dr. David Bull, you'll know him very well next. And keep those voice notes coming. 0344 499 1000. Back in 3.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me every weekend from 6 a.m. for the stories that matter to you. We talk politics, we talk news, we talk entertainment, we talk about everything that affects your life. There's only one place to start your weekend, the home of common sense. Talk Breakfast on Talk. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Friday, Saturday and Sunday here on the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Breakfast, 9:15. Julia from 10, Ian Collins from 1, and Kev O'Sullivan on drive time. Sounded great for 4 o'clock this afternoon. Morning, Gary.
Jez, great show, Gary and Lincoln. Not much to say on this, really. What can you say about all this going on? What has Keir Starmer got to say? Has he put out a tweet this morning? Also, on the voting in the booths, if people were being in there as family members, going in together, maybe there should be a recount, because if it's illegal to do it...
Listen, I couldn't agree. I mean, Dale says, look, if family voting is illegal and people were clearly sharing a booth, why did the officials in the polling stations not stop it or report it? You have to be able to have these conversations, but I get the people who will say, oh, this is sour grapes. I don't think it's sour grapes. I think it's really important. Let's go to Manchester. Terence, good morning. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning, Jeremy. A couple of points, actually.
Yep.
About the voting in Gorton and Denton. How many reform canvassers went into Muslim areas to actually canvass for their vote? I wouldn't think there would be many. Welcome. The second point is Angela Rayner sat in a mosque thanking the Muslims for their vote, and she wouldn't have got in the seat but for their vote. I think she's gone at the next election.
So you believe that sectarian voting is relevant and prevalent across the United Kingdom?
It is.
What's going to change? Is this going to be a regular feature going forward, do you think?
I would think it is going to be, yeah. I mean, gone are the days of Labour and Conservative. They haven't so much about the green issues and things like that.
Oh, not a mention of greenness. I haven't heard one tree hugger talk about a river or otters that don't know where to swim. All I've heard about is Gaza. Thank you, Terence. Let's go to Bedfordshire. Victor, good morning. You're on Talk Breakfast.
Yeah. What?
And good morning to you too, sir. You could say good morning, Jez, you miserable git. What's the matter with you?
Yeah. I was going to say, what concerns me is why people voted for Green. One of the things I've been hearing a lot is I'm voting Green to keep out the racists. That's what a lot of people are saying.
Why do you think people voted for Green Party, the Green Party?
Yeah, because of the way they've been educated at school.
I think that the Green election here is a very. I think a by-election is very different. I think it's a populist wave. I think the Labour Party is the story this morning. We thank you for your call, Victor. It's 9:18. We're live across the UK. I've been watching television screens all morning, and a mate of mine has been at it since 6 o'clock. He looks slightly tired, but I'm going to give him the absolute. I'm going to G him right up. Dr. David Bull, Chairman of Reform. Good morning. Oh, Trevor. Well, you see, honest to God, we're going everywhere. Trevor Kavanagh has morphed from David Bull into Trevor Kavanagh. Good morning, Trevor. How are you?
We look very similar, don't we, Jeremy?
You do look very similar. Trevor, you are mature enough and experienced enough to take a step back, and I have been saying the following all morning. I take the following from this result. Labour hammered in a heartland that they have held for 100 years. It goes without saying that this will start again the debate about Starmer's premiership. It started with Rachel Mansell. We had Carl Turner on. I think the vultures are circling. The Tory vote disappears. They lose their deposit. I don't think they're the opposition anymore. Reform, although the critics are saying didn't win, get exactly locally, Trevor, what they got nationally, 29%. And I think for them, the takeout today, irrespective of sectarian voting accusations and family voting, is that they are absolutely the official opposition to the Labour government going forward. What would you make of those three comments?
Well, I think that this is a very sinister and seismic moment in British politics, because we've seen a party which is overtly sectarian, overtly anti-British in so many ways, effectively entrenching sectarian politics into British politics. And we're seeing a party which basically is standing for Gaza, not for Britain, is standing for the Muslim community, not for the British population at large. And I think that they will now, having won this victory, go on to be a permanent thorn in the side of the other parties. And that includes all of them. And I think that the real story here is that had even Andy Burnham managed to be swept into the candidacy for this seat with the goodwill of Keir Starmer behind him, he might have not won it either. I think that what we're seeing here is a rise in sectarian politics, which is a disaster for all our mainstream parties and not a great look even for Reform.
But okay, you know more than me, but surely you could also look at this differently and say that, and I had a guest on who'd voted Green straight away at 6 o'clock this morning, and I thought what he said was really important. He said, they're not left enough for me, the Labour Party, so at this moment I voted Green. Do you not see this as not a blip, but one of those by-election results that will force, in my mind, the Labour Party further to the left and will consolidate the fact that the right party, if you know what I mean, I don't mean that as it sounds, the right-wing party, is Reform. You can see the Greens becoming a major force?
Yes, I can, simply because they're going to be the tail wagging the left-wing dog. You're absolutely right that the Labour Party will now be forced into a shift more to the left than it already is. And believe it or not, we may look back on the days of hapless Keir Starmer as the good old days of Labour before it turned completely socialist under Angela Rayner and Ed Miliband as Chancellor, because that is now what we're heading for. We're going to have, without any doubt, a change of leadership, which they were desperately trying to avoid for the very reasons I've spelled out. Those moderates within the party are fully aware of the path that this government is taking. And if Angela Rayner gets in as Prime Minister, we will see a very big and different way of life for our politics. There's no way that Wes Streeting, the only sensible voice within the party is going to become leader in the current climate.
Just for you, your comments on reform, very interesting. Nigel Farage this morning raising concerns about reports of high levels of illegal family voting, calling into integrity the whole system and talking about sectarian. Is this a bloody nose for reform, or is it something that they can use positively as an eye-opener to move forward?
Well, I think that the position of reform is one that benefits from that reverse. It's a reaction to the rise of sectarianism and the collapse of established parties, which are propelling reform generally in the polls to the highest position. But they've done pretty poorly here in a seat that they might have hoped to have won, and in which it seems to me, at any rate, not having been to the constituency, the reform hasn't really fought very hard for. And Nigel Farage has been off to Chagos Islands or to the Maldives and not being high profile in Gorton and Denton. So I think that reform has some questions to answer here. So do the Tories, who have lost their deposit. I think that together they still, even with the Tories and reform together in this particular election, wouldn't have come anywhere near a victory. So there are lots of lessons to learn, but the major one of them is the entrenchment of that Muslim vote, which I think will be reflected now increasingly across Britain.
Trevor Kavanagh, thank you very much indeed. Former political editor of The Sun. I gave him a build-up just a minute ago and then he deflated me by switching his button off. The chairman of Reform UK. I am apparently the last interview... Oh, love, look at it. Morning!
Good morning, Jeremy. You are. I've saved the best to last, right?
How many have you done, Bully? How many have you done this morning?
18 interviews, I think, and I've done 11 and a half hours of this, having been in Gorton and Denton yesterday morning, came back to London, then I had a nap, and then I've done this, and literally I'm going to go and lie on the carpet in a minute.
Well, I nearly said the wrong thing. Now, listen, I had to give
Don't say that.
Yes. Ruggs, I had to give one of your MPs, Sarah Pochin, a bit of a talking to at 8 o'clock, and I want to strip this bare because you've heard what Trevor Kavanagh just said. He says that you have had a bloody nose, you didn't fight hard enough. Nigel was out in the Chagos Islands. He saw it as a slightly, almost like a wake-up call to reform. What would be your response to that, David?
What utter tosh. I have to be careful what I say at this time in the morning. Look, I love Trevor, but he's totally wrong on this, Jezza. If you look at this seat, it is Labour's 6th safest seat. For the Greens, this is target seat 121. For us, it was our seat 440. So really, this should have been a fight between Labour and the Greens. And of course, Labour's so busy fighting themselves and the Greens campaigning on very odd things, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So Gaza, the legalisation of drugs, then sex education for LGBTQ plus people. And then, of course, no one expected us to do well at all. And, of course, we came through the middle. Now, we did tremendously well. I do want to just say, and I know that I've been doing this all night, but what a tremendous bunch of supporters and members we have. I had 5,000 people there helping us. When yesterday, I think it was yesterday, 1,200 people helped to get out the vote. It's enormous. And you know me very well. And this party is professionalising the whole time. We are growing. We're learning from every single election that we are fighting. I'm delighted with that result, actually. I think what happened was, and I think about 3 o'clock this morning, we realised that Labour was in serious trouble. It was then down to the two of us, the Greens and Reform, and it was so tantalisingly close at that point that we couldn't call it. And I think then people's expectations got up. Now, had we won that seat, and bear in mind, if that was the 440th seat, I would have been absolutely astonished. I'm still pretty astonished that we came second. But what it does prove is that actually I think we are witnessing the demise of the Tory party and the Labour Party. And I think there is no doubt that Keir Starmer is in serious trouble now. And there are two other points I want to make, which is, and Nigel's been talking about this, the rise of sectarianism, I know is something that our talkTV viewers and listeners will be very concerned about.
Yep.
You've got a Muslim community of 33%, right? The Greens then translated their leaflets into Urdu and then wrote some very unpleasant things about Reform UK because I had them translated to see what they are actually saying. We then saw and we heard from independent arbiters of voter irregularity, and I'm being kind at that. The
talking about family voting. Why didn't the people in the bloody polling booths do something about it?
So you've then got where you've got a husband and wife going into a polling booth together. Jeremy, that's illegal. What I want to know is, how on earth did that happen? Why were people in the polling station allowing that to happen in the first place? And questions need to be answered.
Can I jump in and say that surely... Can I jump in and say, you know, people will say to me, oh, come on, Jez, you're making excuses. I'm not. I'll give you my overview in a minute. If that happened even in one instance, I know a man in the world who's quite orange, who would be saying the whole thing's null and void and needs to be redone again. I do think that the sectarian thing is a real issue. What do you as a party plan to do to deal with something that, let's be honest, in the last election, Labour lost 5 seats. Jonathan Ashworth, a friend of mine, right, lost his seat in Leicester. He's one of the nicest Labour politicians, to a man who simply stood on Gaza. By the way, not a mention of anything in Denton and Gorton to that side of the constituency. How is that for a local MP the right way to go?
Well, so it's very interesting. So the Green MP now has completely pivoted. So on the doorstep, what I was hearing, and remember, I've been there for 4 weeks on and off, and on the doorstep, people are talking about immigration, the decimation of the high street, the fact that their heart has been ripped out of these communities, no jobs, the insane net zero, so energy bills are so high. I heard from small businesses going to the wall. That's what people are talking about. They feel that they're so despondent, there is no future for them. And now suddenly, having won, the Green Party suddenly would go, oh, hang on a minute, we need to now deal with this. What I would say to her is that you now, as a constituency MP, better actually work for your constituents. And as a constituency MP, it is about actually making sure you deal with constituents' worries and concerns and fears and so on. It's not about posturing on Gaza. So there's a massive disconnect here. What does it say? And I've been thinking about this for the many hours that I've been doing this. What does it say? many hours. What does it say from here? I think the British public are going to be furious. I think this is going to cause one heck of a rumpus, where we are now seeing a completely divided country. You've got basically pockets of communities that don't speak English, don't integrate, are nothing to do with the community. I'm really sorry. You're welcome to this country, but you learn English, you integrate. We have one community which is brought together by British values and British constructs. We work together, and as you know, with our party slogan, it's family, community, country. I think many people this morning will be waking up and thinking, what the heck happened to the United Kingdom?
I have to say, and I'll ask a couple of questions, and my take from it all, and I actually adhere to that. Whether the Greens are a long-term view, whether it's disenfranchised Labour voters, and one thing I think will happen is Labour hammered in the heartland. I think Starmer goes, I think they'll lurch to the left. Like you, I have great faith in the British public, and I hope that when the dust has settled, because by-elections are by-elections, and that's not sour grapes. The democratic vote said Hannah Spencer's the MP. We have to salute Hannah Spencer. They've won the election. We live in a goddamn democracy. For all the people who go, oh, I'd like another Brexit vote, we say no. Listen, she won it fair and square. But the truth of this, there are bigger issues here. The Tory party is extinct, but I want to put something to you as the chairman of Reform UK. Much has been made in the last couple of weeks about other parties on the right, and I won't go into detail because I can't be asked. The truth is surely this. A gentleman called Nick Buckley, who stood for Advance UK, had defected from Reform, got less votes than Sir Oinkalot from the monster raving loony party. As I said to Sarah Pochin, and I don't need to tell you how to do your job, surely the takeout from this is that the Reform Party in Manchester's Denton and Gorton constituency got the same vote percentage locally as you've got nationally, right? And actually the one thing that comes out of this is that any disenfranchised Tory voters, there is now the only official opposition to Starmer is the Reform Party, isn't it?
That's absolutely right. And on lesser channels, Jeremy, they keep saying to me, what went wrong? Why are you not despondent? And I think, are you actually looking at the same results that I'm looking at? Because
that's because everybody, listen, that's because everybody will say, you know, Reform should have won it. I think the facts need to be given. 441st seat. But at the end of the day, I'm perfectly honest here. Hannah Spencer is the new MP.
Agreed. And
the view from the cheap
congratulations to
seats.
her.
The view from the cheap seats is a lot easier. I
It's not
like
that
you.
cheap.
She's a job to do now. Before
Well,
you
she
go,
does.
Before you go to bed, couple of questions. Genuinely serious. Will Reform call for a rerun due to the family voting accusations?
Well, so I've just spoken to Nigel, actually, and he's just had a little nap. And I just said to him, we need to get some sleep. We need to think about this when we're a little more rested. Let's not rush into this. Would it have changed? So the question then is, would it have changed the outcome? My personal feeling is probably not. Should we report it to the police? Yes, because if it's electoral fraud, absolutely. But look, if we lose democracy in this country is in a very dark place. So something needs to happen. I think also we need to be magnanimous enough to know that and to say that it didn't change the election result. But I go back to the point right at the beginning. For us to win that seat would have been unbelievable. It would have been the biggest upset. So
do you think you would have benefited from saying that during the campaign a bit more?
Good point. But if you do that, then people may not vote for you. So that's a tricky one. But what I was just very disheartened, actually. I spoke to people on the doorstep who have been lifelong Labour voters who said, I will never vote Labour because I feel so let down. And they said if we had more money, we would leave the country.
Yeah.
Now, that's a terrible thing to hear.
Terrible. When rest is had and thoughts are balanced, it might well be. And let's just salute Reform about how they got 4,900,000 people to vote in the upcoming elections by going through the legal channels. You might well go to the police.
I'm glad you said that.
You might well go to the police over these irregularities, yes?
Yes, and so also you're right. So as you know, we went to the High Court, we won that. The government tried to cancel those elections. We now have 4.5 million people now enfranchised to vote in Norfolk and Suffolk and Sussex and so on. So coming to May the 7th, so as a party and as the chairman of that party, we now move on to May the 7th. This is going to be, I will predict, a bloodbath for Labour. And I think you're going to see Reform do incredibly well. If you look at the map of the United Kingdom, it is a sea of turquoise, as I keep liking to say. But then the question is, when does Starmer go? Do they move against him now, in which case they're left looking sort of over the cliff at May the 7th? Or do they wait for the decimation of May the 7th to move against him then?
You're not a football fan, but, imagine this. Imagine you are. Manchester City phone me today and they say, Jez, you can be the new manager, but our next two games are against Real Madrid and, I don't know, somebody else, Bayern Munich. And then the third match is against Bournemouth. I'm going to say, I want your job, but I'm going to take it in 3 weeks. There isn't a cat in hell's chance of anybody, however thick the Labour front bench are, of moving against him before May the 7th, because he's going to take the rap for that and will be done. I have to say, the interesting thing overall is what happens after this. Do Labour lurch to the left? Do the Greens become a strong voice? Do Reform learn from it? Can you change anything? I've got one final question for you that somebody put to me, and I didn't even think I'd ask you this, but I know you well enough to know that you'll answer it. Did you go into the Muslim areas and campaign in the constituency?
Yes. I went everywhere. It's an interesting constituency, that, because Gorton makes up 2/3 of that constituency and Denton 1/3. So predominantly Muslim vote in the Gorton area. But Denton, white working class, people who feel that they have no future. And it was really interesting, and actually it shows just the electoral boundaries, because they basically took two completely different constituencies and put them back together.
Yeah.
So you've got a very odd demographic mix in that constituency. Have we learned? Yes, of course. I'm learning every single election we do. But one thing I will tell you, if I look back 6 years ago when we had no data on anything, and if I look at the operation, and I know that I've invited you into the office and you've seen it and you've seen the operation, it is now a very slick professional operation.
Yeah.
Make no mistake, as we fight more and more elections, by-elections, general elections, we're going to do really well.
Mate, I can't thank you enough. I've done that many a time, 18 interviews, and you get to number 3 and go home, have a sleep, God bless you, and I'll speak soon. David Bill, thank you, my friend. Chairman from Reform UK, 24 minutes to 10 o'clock. Morning, Diane.
Morning.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Read the Talk app and the best bits. I'm not on it. Let's do bless him. Do you know what? Sam, who's brilliant, pushes the buttons. He made a little mistake there and he went, my bad. And I went, oh my God, you sound like my teenage son. And he's 48. How old are you, Sammy? 33. I'm only joking. Right. Let's see if he can get it right this time. God bless his soul. Morning, Diane.
Morning, Jeremy. I think it's time people and parties are stopped. That is not allowed to stand on Palestine and Gaza in any UK election. This would help a great deal. Thank you.
Many people will agree. Can I just bring back to your attention, if you weren't listening, pretty strong words from the chairman of the Reform Party, David Bull, Dr. David Bull, before that break, saying that the accusations from Nigel Farage, he's raised concerns via a tweet this morning. There were reports of high levels of illegal family voting in Gordon and Denton. This means, and it has been verified, this is not about just reform, this has been verified. It could be that up to 12% of votes cast were influenced by family voting. By that we mean that people went into the booths more than one person, which is illegal, and quite why, if that happened, any of the officials didn't raise that, I've no idea. He was right, though, to say we have to be magnanimous. So democracy is democracy, and Hannah Spencer is the new MP, and it probably would make no difference. But if you look forward, sectarian voting systems, you look forward to what will happen, it might well be that something needs to be done. And David said categorically that he and Nigel were considering going to the police with that information. Good God, it's been a busy show. 0344 419 1000. Hello to Sean in Somerset. Morning, Jez. Regarding the Greens' election victory, they won by putting down the other parties and reaching out to the Muslim vote. John, the only thing I agree with the Greens are their drug policy. I think we can all agree the policies for the last 20 years have worked. Work have got drugs and worse. Addicts are dying because of the drug lords who control our towns and cities. I don't, though, John, agree with you in any which way. Try saying to somebody who's lost their child or a family member through heroin addiction, let's just legalise it. I'd go the other way. Sorry, I'd make it a lot stronger, the sentencing and the way that we arrest people. But we all have different opinions. You might have heard some breaking news in the last hour, which disgusts me. Love your thoughts on this. The statue of Sir Winston Churchill in Parliament Square has been defaced with pro-Palestinian graffiti. The words Free Palestine and Zionist war criminal were written across the statue of the former Prime Minister. Disgusting. Let's go now to the polling expert and legend, Professor of Politics at the University of Strathclyde. Sir John Curtis, your views on how this by-election turned out. As it was, Hannah Spencer 41%, which is up nearly 30%. Reforms UK, Matt Goodwin 29%, exactly what they're doing nationally. Yep. But Labour, surely, from a polling point of view, the big story, down 25%. They halved their vote, and the Conservatives at 2% losing their deposit, Sir John.
Yeah, and actually the Conservatives recorded their worst ever result in a by-election. So the old parties both got a drubbing, and both the two new parties did relatively well. Clearly, but above all, however, the Greens. Now, most of us were anticipating that while perhaps the Greens might win, it would be a relatively close win if they managed it. In the event, frankly, they romped home with 41% of the vote. And while undoubtedly the party will have been benefited from the fact that Gaza was an issue, and I understand some of your viewers saying, well, parties should be campaigning on it, but the trouble is that they're talking about something that for those who identify as Muslim is something that they are concerned about. So to that extent, at least, we shouldn't be surprised. And if it wasn't the Greens, it would have been George Galloway.
To be honest, you make a really salient point that I haven't brought up in 3 hours and 40 minutes. George Galloway's Workers' Party did not run a candidate. And I think most of us know that if he had run a candidate, he'd have picked up sort of 10 or 12,000 votes. Now, if that happened, the result would have been very, very different. But no, we can't shy away from the fact, John, that there is, of course, a Muslim vote. I've never shied away from that, but I'm concerned about a party that says things to one part of the electorate and things to another part of the electorate just to get elected. I don't think it's a governable party, in my humble.
Well, that, of course, is an accusation that was often and has been levied at the Liberal Democrats too, of saying one thing, one kind of criticising one in another. I mean, on the other hand, I mean, I think the Greens, I would say, are fairly unequivocal in their position on Palestine, as they are indeed on drugs. And I'm not sure that on those issues they get much chance anymore to say one thing in one place and one thing in another.
Do you think, John, that they will be a serious factor going forward, or do you believe, as a polling expert, this is merely a by-election blip, my friend?
Well, I mean, the point one is we've now had two parliamentary by-elections in a row, one by Reform, one by the Greens. So we've got confirmation in votes in ballot boxes that the traditional parties are being challenged from both ends of the ideological spectrum. Two, this is the first by-election, Rochdale aside, where the Labour Party basically disowned their candidate, where neither Conservative or Labour were first or second. So we are in uncharted territory. And of course, on its own, by-elections don't tell you very much, but this has happened at a time when, yes, Reform continued to be running at around 29-30% in the polls. That doesn't seem to be going away anytime very soon. But equally, when the Greens have more or less doubled their support from 7% before Polanski became leader to about 14% now. So these are by-elections which have registered changes that have been evident in the polls and have also been evident, for example, in the case of Reform in the local council elections next year. And of course, we're now looking to the devolved and local elections on May the 7th to see whether or not they find further confirmation or not of the story. And the challenge now to the Greens, for example, is to be able to demonstrate, for example, that in London, which looks the most promising territory for them, that they can indeed do just as well in parts of the capital which look pretty safe Labour, where Reform are not going to be the challengers, but where the Greens will start from quite a long way behind, as they did in Gorton and Denton. And in a sense, if they're going to maintain their momentum, they'd want to be able to build on the back of this to be able to persuade voters in London in particular that voting for the Greens is now an alternative way of expressing their point of view.
John, you've been amazing all week. We so appreciate you coming on the show, my friend. We'll get you on again next week as we look ahead towards those May elections and the national situation. But thank you as ever, Sir John Curtis, legendary pollster. And I've saved the best to last, ladies and gentlemen. I've been here since 6 o'clock. I've had more guests, frankly, than a job centre. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you... this is going to be really interesting. Ex-Labour advisor Matthew Torbert, good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, the calm voice. Right, I've been on this all day. You're a very balanced person. Very casual today. Where have you been?
There's a reason I'm going visiting a homelessness charity after this, and in my experience, if you turn up in a suit, when I was homeless, I didn't trust you. I thought you were the problem, to be honest. So
okay. That's Gorton and Denton, you're famous in my mind for saying on the night that Keir Starmer won the election, you said this is as good as it gets. We'll talk about Reform in a minute, but the truth is it not, that Labour has been hammered in one of its heartland seats. The 441st attack seat for the Reform tells you something. They have held this seat for 100 years. It's not the end of the Labour Party. This is end of Keir Starmer. That's it, isn't it? Third place. Unbelievable. Lost half your vote.
I said to you 4 weeks ago yesterday that Keir Starmer had signed his own obituary by blocking Andy Burnham on the Sunday.
Yeah.
I made my decision to leave the Labour Party as a point of principle because I felt they were expanding more energy on factional blockings of candidates that would clearly win.
Would he have won here?
Reform admitted that last night on live television, as did the Greens, both privately to me and on television as well. They're aware of the people.
Burnham would have beaten the Greens.
Burnham would have beaten them because the amount of Greens that said, "Well, I'd have voted for Burnham." Actually,
so you don't agree with whoever? Who was it? Who the hell was it? There's been so many people. Somebody said, "Oh, Trevor Kavanagh," that the Greens will become a major force heading forward. I don't buy that. I think this is a blip.
They might well do. They wouldn't have done last night.
No.
They wouldn't have done last night, and it depends on the makeup of the seat. They'll do well in London and elsewhere. So is it? Yeah, it's the end for Keir Starmer. It'll be a slow car crash. It'll be May. It'll be after May. It'll be conference. It'll be whatever. But it seems to me an incredibly expensive and pointless exercise in finding out that Andy Burnham is quite well liked in Manchester and Keir Starmer is hated. It seems utterly... And actually, the national picture now, we've had two by-elections, both very different areas but with similar outcomes, both in Caerphilly in Wales and now Gorton and Denton. And Labour is now not even the tactical anti-reform vote in Labour seats. That's how bad it is. I think there's been an oversimplification of why. The idea of the Muslim vote being a monolith. What a lot of Labour people would tell you is a lot of older Muslims were sticking with Labour, actually. Younger Muslims were certainly floating with the Greens. They're like any group, they're not all one thing and therefore all follow each other and go and do different things. The Green Party obviously fell into that, but this is also the 13th most deprived constituency in the country. Is it a surprise, therefore, that Zach Polanski didn't just focus, and Hannah herself didn't just focus on things like Gaza, and they didn't go on about green stuff? They spoke about the cost of living.
But predominantly, you would expect us to from the outside looking in, that the messaging in Urdu, the campaign videos, is at best, many people are calling it sectarian voting.
Yeah, it was. It's one video, bear in mind. It's not the campaign. If you look at the leaflets they put out, all they did was speak about the cost of living.
Did you hear Reform Chairman David Bull say they will be reporting their concerns about family voting to the police? This was independently verified, by the way. 12% of votes in that constituency. I mean, that's illegal.
Yeah, I saw it and it's concerning.
You've seen it this time when you were up there?
I didn't go up. I didn't go on campaign for him. Are you mad?
I don't know.
He's holding
himself back.
I read my thoughts. Listen, I hoped I was wrong, and I hoped they pulled through. And I was happy to eat humble pie this morning and say, do you know what? Maybe Andy Burnham wasn't the only one that could have won. Unfortunately, people like me that like to feel they've still got their feet on the ground and are rooted. I'm from the seat next door. I speak to people. I spoke to friends who had Farage at the door. They've had Polanski at the door, and I know what people say and think, Jez. My mates aren't in politics. You know, I find people in politics insufferable at the best of times. I thought...
That's why we get on.
My instinct was that Labour would... And I said to you 4 weeks ago, we would come third and it would be Reform and the Greens fighting it out as a progressive versus the disruptor, and we would become irrelevant.
Let's talk about Reform. Balanced here. Matt Goodwin got 29% of the vote, which the Reform Party... although the critics won't agree with this, that is exactly what they've been getting nationally. It's 15% up on the last election. It's only their 441st attack seat. It is an area that they wouldn't expect to win. I had Sarah Pochenon not looking very happy. For me, the one thing that I would take if I was Nigel and the rest of them this morning is that all this noise about Advance UK and that other lot, I can't even remember what they're called, Restore or something, right? Not interested. Genuinely, this is what I think. If anything comes out of this today, it proves, does it not, that Nigel Farage's Reform Party are the official opposition in the United Kingdom?
Depends on the seat, but you could make that argument. I think where they finished is totally fine. I think it's an achievement. You have to.
It is an achievement in that constituency, isn't it?
No, because of course it is. Because you also have to remember the reason why I think it's quite seismic is the Labour Party not only have held that seat for 100 years. My old great aunt used to live in that seat many moons ago when Gerald Kaufman was the MP. They've got decades worth of data. Yep. Reform are essentially a start-up, and in a way, under Zach Polanski, the Greens are the same. So both of them are starting from fresh.
So they've both done well, you'd say, right?
Yeah, and actually, aside of the family voting, which is a concern, could be younger members of the family trying to translate, or it could be something more insidious. We'll have to wait and see what the evidence is. But other than that, I was quite heartened. Regardless of your politics, each of the main three that went for it had 1,000 people on the day. That's amazing that there's 1,000 people from each group that believe in something, which we've not had. We didn't. Last time I saw numbers like that was Jeremy Corbyn in 2017. And now the only thing that Reform might have to balance is it can become a hindrance. Because if you're a new party and you've got 1,000 people turning up, many who haven't canvassed before, don't really know what they're doing. You get a lot of standing around. And therefore it maybe is a lesson, is a learning curve of like, this is how we do things. But I think from a standing start to come second in a seat, I think on Reform's list would be like 411th on the target list. It's fine. There is a wider point, 30 points in the polls. They've got to get over that 30 points and get to 35 and appeal to a broader sense of people if they're going to form a majority government for me.
Your old party, Labour, very quickly, what does it do now? Does it lurch to the left to attack the Greens after Starmer goes?
No, it's not about attacking. This is what people get wrong. Negative campaigns never win.
Well, they spent the entire... I mean, he has spent his entire premierships, like, he mentions Farage more than Mrs Farage.
That's my point. Look at where he is.
Yeah.
He's the most unpopular Prime Minister we've had since polling records go back. He's lost by-elections that are considered safe seats, and therefore... You look at Brexit. Brexit was a negative campaign. Leave one. You look at any campaign that is negative and attacks the other side, they never win. What he should be doing is either, one, considering his position, but if he's going to stick around, you have to be more radical in your policy, because you have to be able to go to people and go, stick with us because we're good. We've offered you something. We're changing your lives for the better. You don't go, don't let him in, he's going to sell crack cocaine in the playground, which is just tedious and ridiculous.
Do you honestly, though, on a serious note, tell me that a party that believes that a woman can have a penis and legalisation of heroin is OK is really going to get any national traction?
They've just won a by-election. In an inner-city Manchester seat, when they've never got 10% before. It's not just down to Gaza, because I had Reform people telling me in Denton a lot of the don't-knows they were getting were going Green. That surprised me even in Denton. And I think what it is, both on Reform and Green, which is where Labour have got to be thinking long and hard, is people want something different and they're fed up and they'll look either side.
There you go. I need your response to two things very quickly. As I said, the Reform chairman, David Bull, says that they will be reporting their concerns about family voting to the police. Do you support that?
Yeah, if something's gone wrong, you should report it. Of course, you don't care who you are or what party you are. I think if I lived in Peterborough when there was talk of stuff like that, I lived in Tower Hamlets for 6 years when there was stuff. I know people like Lutfer Rahman go around whipping up block votes in mosques. Now, if this is the man of the house taking charge and telling his wife what's what, that could be a concern, definitely. Maybe the wife, maybe they agree anyway, I don't know. If it is, which I do know in some immigrant households where the younger lad ordinarily would essentially translate, the older, whether it be the grandma, the auntie, whatever, isn't great with English. I believe you should speak English in this country, but we are where we are. Then that is slightly different. But again, we'll have to see the evidence. But yeah, if he wants to report it, no issue whatsoever.
Very quickly, I've got 30 seconds. If you can't speak the language, should you be able to vote for the next government?
I think within reason. I think we have people who came here many years ago. That wasn't a stipulation. If we want to get to a point where we decide you've got to speak English to be here, then fine. But you're going to have some sort of cut-off. It's not good. But ultimately, I'm not going to gatekeep on democracy. I think if you live in this country, you potentially pay your taxes, you contribute in other ways, then why should you not vote for who you want as your local politician?
It's been a fascinating morning, finished off by a great man in a very casual outfit. I'm not taking good man what he's going to go and do. Sorry I haven't called you this week. It's been bloody manic. I will do. The legend that is Matthew Torbett, thank you very much indeed, saying that the big difference today is that the Labour Party have now got it on both flanks, from the Greens and from Reform. Julia is here from 10 o'clock. Get your calls nice and early to her, 0344 499 1000, or your text messages to her on 87222. Morning, Dino.
Morning, Jezza. Dean here from South Wales. Last night was a result that no one was expecting, but we all know why it happened, and the blame has got to lie at the hands of Keir Starmer. Starmer was terrified of letting Andy Burnham run because he knew what would happen. Andy Burnham would have challenged him, so the blame has to lie totally at Keir Starmer's feet for last night's loss for Labour.
some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, do these people who lead us actually hate Britain?
Yeah.
Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Can I say a big thank you to an incredible team. Samara on location, Chris and Neha. Sammy was brilliant, and Tommy, and they're brilliant this morning. Thank you for all your input as well. Julia Hartley-Brewer, good morning.
Very, very good morning. Well, thank you. Great listen. I mean, what a great result to wake up to. Goodness me. I mean, it's just wonderful. There's no sectarian politics in this country. Everything's great, and the Prime Minister's doing a great job, and the future is green. So
and the future's green with the penis for a woman, and Putin will just put down his weapons.
As I wrote for the Sun today, didn't you? Imagine the worst possible crazy policies you could imagine, and the Greens are worse than that. They ain't cuddly, they ain't nice. First time this morning I heard a Radio 4 interview in BBC.
I do know.